I'm Liz West. I'm your MC for the morning. I'm so honored to be staying in front of so many of you inspiring, powerful women who are leading the charge for change. And we appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedules, because we know that everybody is full on right now and that you've carved out this time to be with us here as we celebrate the remarkable females who've demonstrated through their life and their work and their leadership that women can make a difference. They are incredible role models for women's empowerment and gender equality. So before we begin, just a couple of housekeeping notes. The washrooms are out these doors to your left, and there is Wi-Fi. In case you're wondering, it's TR bot guest. So if you haven't found that, take a look. It's easy. There's no password. We have a great morning. The organizers have put a fantastic morning together for you, okay? There's interactive panels as evidenced by chairs and microphones. Here we've got case studies, roundtable sessions, and there's even business-inspired games with prizes. So you're not gonna walk out of here empty-handed. We like to make it fun while you're working. Our Q&A is gonna be done by audience poll, so join us to take the Women in Business and Leadership Forum discussion online across all social media platforms with the hashtags Women Inspire 2023, Women Inspire, and Casa Foundation. So this year's theme is Women in Business, enabling managers to rise to boards and top leadership. And it's a theme that is particularly close to Casa's heart, because it really underscores the need for us to create more opportunities for young women to achieve their full potential. And we all understand that, don't we? So today's event has really been specially designed to celebrate International Women's Day, which was on Wednesday, to recognize the inspiring women who have distinguished themselves in the business and trade spheres, advancing Canada's trade and economic development landscape. And we also aim to recognize female leaders and efforts in enabling and promoting equity around various sectors and industries in Canada, and to host a dialogue to address the gaps of future gender equality and leadership roles where women are underrepresented, and that certainly still exists. We are fortunate to have women from several different industries here today, academia, corporate, public, private, all present in the room to engage in these interactive panels, fireside chats, and roundtable discussions. So we just want to emphasize that today is really your day to have your say, to optimize all these networking opportunities, and there will be several throughout the day, to boost your business and to advance your leadership career. So the question is, why is this the perfect time for the forum? I mean, for sure, you know, we've suffered through a pandemic, so we all have challenges from that. Now we're able to convene together face-to-face, and there's nothing like networking face-to-face, right? I mean, it's fine online, and we did all right. Maybe we could even pat ourselves on the back and said, wow, I didn't think I was capable of doing that with my computer in my kid's bedroom or wherever you were. But we're here together, and we can read our body language, and we can get a lot closer, and we can truly connect in person, which is what we want to do today. Women play a central role in the rise of the entrepreneurial economy in this country, launching businesses at higher rates than ever and often outpacing men. However, there are significant differences that exist between women-owned and men-owned businesses. Women-owned businesses remain underrepresented in the economy. Their startups have lower growth rates and income and employment, lower survival rates than their male-owned counterparts, and women-owned businesses are smaller than men's. So the bottom line is really women are less likely to become entrepreneurs because of these obstacles. Today, as we celebrate the achievements of women, we're also going to dig into the challenges that we face as entrepreneurs and leaders and discuss the opportunities that have been put in place by the Canadian government to support women, entrepreneurship, and equity. All right, so enough about me talking up here. Now it's my great pleasure to invite Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade. She is the president of Casa Foundation and founding partner in VCAP Corporation, and she'll be presenting the welcome address. Please welcome the doctor to the stage.
Good morning, ladies. Good morning, good morning, good morning, everyone. It's so good to see you all here today. And I see a few gentlemen in our midst. And this must be the gentlemen that really do support the ladies in the journey of their dreams. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for also joining us. It's such a pleasure. It's such a privilege to be here this morning. Thank you for coming. It's so great to see you all this morning. What a joy to network again. I mean, I saw the networking and I kind of imagined what it was like staying cooped up at home for 24 months, about 24 months or 28 months. How did we cope? How did we manage? But here we are anyway. We're here this morning and it gives me so much joy, so much pleasure to welcome you all. Thank you for coming. Let me start by quickly welcoming all our guests from the Government of Canada, guests from the private sector, and from the academia. Today, we have, and I'm sure we'll be having the Honorable Minister Ng, the Honorable Filomena Tassi. Minister Ng is the Minister of International Development. We'll have a message from her. And Minister Tassi is also the Minister of the Federal Development Agency of Southern Ontario. And the members of Parliament, Honorable Rechie Valdez, a message from Her Worship Bonnie Crombie, the Mayor of Mississauga. Thank you all for sending representatives and sending messages to us today. Today, we're also proud to welcome TD Bank. I hope they're in the room. TD Bank is one of our sponsors at this particular event. All right, okay, I see you, thank you. I wasn't sure, I haven't met everyone. All right, so this is acknowledging TD Bank and the executives in the room with us today as one of our sponsors. Today also, we have the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, represented by Professor Wendy Sukir, one of our panelists also at a later session, and members and executives from Toronto Metropolitan University. Thank you all for coming. Entrepreneurs Point, Incubator, and InfCap Corporation. Thank you all for sponsoring this event today. Esteemed ladies and gentlemen in the room who continue to show up for us, it's important that we acknowledge you today. Thank you also for coming. And our friends from supporting organizations like the Jean Augustine Center, the Centennial College, the Queen's University, and the Organization of Women in Trade, Toronto. I believe you're all here today. Thank you also for coming. And last but not the least, we want to welcome the board, members of the board and management of the Casa Foundation. Thank you also for joining us. Tridel Corporation, and I'm sure we all know Tridel Corporation, the Wells at the juncture there. Gian Del Zotto, thank you also for joining us. I see you sitting at the back there. Tridel Corporation was actually the first sponsor of the Women Inspire in 2020. It's good to have you all here. We're all very important, and that's why we're celebrating today. So thank you all for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, first we must acknowledge that by providential help, we're all here today. We survived the pandemic, and we're looking forward to, executing on our dreams and implementing those goals again, even those ones that appeared lost during the pandemic. So we are thankful that we're here, that we can serve customers through our businesses, but more importantly, gratitude that we're alive, gratitude that we made it through the pandemic, and that we can start dreaming of starting new ventures again and building new initiatives. We're grateful. At the last count by Statistics Canada, it reported that about 43,000 businesses shut down in Canada during the pandemic. Most of them women-owned. And as we all know, the pandemic itself actually affected women, more women-led businesses than their male counterparts. And so, although we appear as women in the room and women-owned businesses, women in career, women in leadership, although we appear to be running at a deficit, and it appears that people have been hard hit in business due to some of the resource gaps that we've experienced in capital, in partnerships, in mentorship, and in sponsorship. And so the effects of the disruptions caused by the pandemic, although it was enormous and can best be imagined, but here we are again this morning, and it shows that we are a force to be reckoned with because we keep pushing ahead. Despite the challenges, we have continued to acquire the needed support and diligently move our initiatives forward in our respective spaces. At the International Women's Day celebration in Ottawa earlier this week, the Minister Ng addressed us, and we learned that women-led businesses rose to 18% in Canada at the end of 2022 for the first time. Before the pandemic, we were at 16%. This is quite significant, although the percentage appears very low, when you compare to the male-dominated sectors. But what is important is that we're moving forward, particularly after the pandemic. 18% is a step in the right direction. I reckon that by the time we come here again in another 2 years or in another 3 years, perhaps we'll be able to announce to you also again that women-led businesses have risen to maybe 25%, maybe 30%. I believe in places like parts of Europe and some parts of North America, it's hitting about 35% now. As a matter of fact, women on boards constitute about 35%. And there's a mandate that it should be 50%. It's a mandate, and it's watched, it's monitored. If you for companies that are listed on their stock exchanges, there's a mandate from the regulatory authorities in Europe to move women-led business. The components of women on the boards to about 50% by 2025. It's very close, but I believe they're already on 35% now. So Canada is no different, and I'm sure we should move in that same direction. Ladies and gentlemen, in the room today we have women who are focused on innovation. Their creativity speaks for them. Our leadership, even in the dark moments, even when things appear to be on the brink. And it's important for ladies to continue to make progress. You only need to entrust a part of your business or a part of your workplace to the woman, a corporation, and you see how they turn things around, how they shape and direct people, because women lead in a different way. And I did a study on this in my thesis. Women lead in a communal way. It's not a bad thing to be, to be authoritarian and all of those. You need a part of that when you lead. However, women are known to lead in a communal way. And what's the communal way? Women lead by participation, by collaboration. They want the input of every other one in the room before they take their final decisions. And when I say women, I'm talking about, generally speaking. Of course, there will always be the outliers that do things differently. But then, generally speaking, women build consensus. And that's because they focus on community. Communal just means community. And this is the way women lead. And that's why we brought to you today a lot of women in leadership. And I know we lead in different aspects of our organizations, but it's important to listen to women who represent the private sector, the public sector, women who represent trade, women who have built businesses, initiatives in the nonprofit sector, in the private sector, so that they can speak to us today. The idea then is, what have they learned? What's the journey been about? What have they gained? Where are they heading? What can we learn? Because we can learn. There's a story about every woman. There's something to learn from everyone seated at the different tables today. And I want to encourage us, to learn from each of the women that will be speaking to us today. Our stories are very important. Our stories shape us. Our stories are our brand. The stories people hear about us, it helps them to either connect with us or to step back from us. And so I believe today that for the women in the room, people will connect with us. They will be looking forward to do a lot more with us. Last year, in 2020, we launched Women Inspire. And the goal of Women Inspire was to showcase the women I just spoke about, to showcase and feature some of the women doing great things in the community and in the various sectors so that we can build mentors. Perhaps some of them will be able to sponsor us, sponsor some of our initiatives, if they believe in some of those initiatives, if we sell the value proposition to them in an appropriate manner. And so that was the reason we brought all of them into the room, so we could learn. Women Inspire was launched by the Minister Mary Ng on the 5th of March, 2020. On this same platform. Although the TRBOT then was at the Lenox Hall, 77 Adelaide, but we're still at TRBOT today, and we look forward to hearing from her. The promises we made was to match young, aspiring entrepreneurs, young people looking to start their own businesses, and not just young by age. I'm talking about startups, yeah? So you're just starting out, it's your business, and you're looking for some resources. And when we talk about resources, it's not just the capital. We're talking about other resources, some talent, some staff, and workforce, perhaps volunteers, and maybe people who can even help you create your business plans and things like that. It was the whole idea. And we came and did that and made a lot of promises. People were looking for role models. People were so excited to connect. It was a great moment for people, and people were very optimistic. Emails kept pouring in because people really wanted the connection. But then, of course, like I said, the system shut down. Christine, at the ministerial meeting in the course of this week, it was Christine Nakamura, who will be speaking later on again today, who shared, the Vice President of the Asian Pacific Foundation, that there was a trade mission to Asia, I think it was in Hong Kong, and they had to cancel, and a lot of deals broke down, ventures collapsed, and businesses closed down within the first 6 months of 2020 on account of the shutdown. Although we were panicking and a lot of people were shocked, but then, at the end of the day, people were able to come together using virtual platforms. And I'm sure we're all familiar with the word pivot. Everybody said, oh, they were going to do things in a different way so that we just could keep keep our programs going, keep our programs moving forward. People began to create new businesses. Some expanded, some closed down. Some are still in the recovery process. But what is important is that we're here today. And that shows that we're deliberate, we're intentional about moving forward. And I think it's quite exciting for us to welcome you all today. The last part of my speech, so I can wrap up now, is that despite all the closed down, shut down businesses and things like that, there were still a lot of businesses that made very significant impact, very significant progress, even during the pandemic. And I just wanted to cite maybe one or two. Of course, we'll start with Casa Foundation, maybe because I have the power of the mic. So I'll quickly share that although we panicked and were shocked by the shutdown, indeed we also went virtual. And it was in the process, instead of shutting down some of our transactions and some of the programs we were running, we decided to take a pitch program. People were wondering, how could you do a pitch program online? How could you run that virtually? It seemed incredible. It seemed unbelievable. But we did anyway, with, of course, consultations within the community. And as we went along doing that, that was when TD Bank actually found us. And by the end of last year, 2022, we had awarded grants of $5,000 to 17 women-led businesses, all sponsored by TD Bank. And so it's one of the things that happened during the pandemic. And I'm really glad to say that one of those funded businesses is actually here today and will be speaking to us on the panel. And I'm sure I'll be introducing that group. Also, it was during that pandemic that the Black Entrepreneurship Program started by the federal government of Canada. And the Black Entrepreneurship Program is a total of over $401 million for 30 nonprofit organizations that are meant to impact the communities, help you, support you with the resources that you require, just to get loan ready. get grant ready, because there are some levels of preparation. I'm sure we'll be talking about that when we network again today. Casa Foundation is one of those 30 organizations, and we're really grateful to be part of that. So, esteemed ladies in the room today, I said I just wanted to mention those two parts to encourage us to say that whichever stage that we are at today, Women Inspire is for you, and the women in the room today, they are for you, not only for the mentorship purposes, mentorship and sponsorship purposes, but also as role models that you can learn from. There are a lot of people here, as we said. You will learn from their stories and so on. Let's keep in mind quickly that whether you're in the journey of business or of leadership or entrepreneurship, or you're looking for resources, whether it's capital, mentors, partners, or equipment, or tools to scale your businesses or to grow in one way or the other, what's important is that we continue to show the value that we bring to the table. Value has a way of speaking for us, the value proposition. What's your value proposition? Let people hear that. It's not by speech, it's not just by talking, it's actually that it must resonate with people. What's your story? What's your value proposition? Your value helps people gravitate towards you. They want to connect with you and they want to see what you've got. All right, so it's important that we do that. So in conclusion, let's remember that through all the sessions today and as we continue to network during lunch, it's important that for our businesses to survive the adversities, the type that we've seen in the recent past, and for us to continue to thrive, and perhaps to even stay in the game, we need to keep our value proposition clear. And we need to keep articulating that so that people understand exactly what we're talking about and what we bring to the table. The value offerings must also be impactful, so that it's not just what we desire to do, it's actually what people will benefit from, because when people benefit, then they bring other people to be a part of what we do. So, thank you all for listening today, and permit me to welcome all our esteemed speakers, from Professor Wendy Sukia, the Academic Director of Toronto Metropolitan University, Manjit Chita, the Vice President of Centennial College, Jennifer Fries of Second Order, and Adenike Fashion, the Director of KPMG, Charmaine Immersin, co-founder of Black Opportunity Fund, Jody from TD Bank, that's the Regional Vice President, and Anne, the National Leader of Women in Enterprise, TD Bank, Kayla Isabel, the CEO of Startup Canada, Professor Melissa Jimino, the Global Business Management Professor of Centennial College, and our case study entrepreneurs, the women that will be showcasing today, Tosin Duran, funded by Casa Foundation during the pandemic, Loisa, and Sarah. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen, for listening. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Dr. Oyelade. That was a very great way to kick things off, and we're going to move now to
The minister, I think, the video for the minister.
Oh, is it? Okay. We're going to show you a short video at this time.
Hi, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. It's Mary Ng, your Minister of International Trade, Export Promotions, Small Business, and Economic Development, and the Member of Parliament from Markham Thornhill. It takes a lot of incredible women to make our communities, our economy, and our country what it is. I'm a firm believer that women should be celebrated for the invaluable contributions that they make every single day, and today is a special chance for all of us to do that together, all across the country, indeed all across the world. As women, we know that wearing many hats is our norm. We're caregivers, community leaders, teachers, doctors, educators, entrepreneurs, and much, much more. But I believe that we are all trailblazers. And it wasn't long ago in our history that many of those roles were out of our reach. Though we've made significant progress through the years, we know that all too well there is still a lot of work to be done. Our government is committed to supporting Canadian women through historic solutions: $10 a day childcare, paid parental leave, legislating the pay equity, combating gender-based violence, applying a gender lens to all of our policies, including budget making. And I get the opportunity to lead Canada's Women Entrepreneurship Strategy. It's the first of its kind. It's a more than $6 billion investment that's helped over 10,000 women start their new businesses or helped over 12,000 grow their existing businesses. We know that when women succeed, we all succeed. So as we celebrate today, let us not forget the women who have gotten here, the ones before us, the ones who we depend on their continued strength, their resilience, and the progress that we'll make together for our future. Happy International Women's Day.
Good morning. À toutes et à tous. I am pleased to be joining you all virtually today for this amazing Women Inspire.
What do you think? It's a lot of suspense. It's like the Oscars. I don't know who won. Almost coming. We're just, it's, logistics, people, time, that kind of thing. So we will get started in just a minute. Those breakfast sandwiches looked kind of amazing. A lot better than what you usually get at these kinds of events. So thank you to whoever made the food. What? All right. Fabulous. Excellent. Okay, we're going to start with the panel. As you see up here on the screen, it's Empowering Young Women, Case Studies of Young Women in Business, Leadership, and Trade. Our panel will be moderated by Melissa Gimeno. And while Melissa makes her way up here, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She has taught international business courses at the University of South Carolina, Seneca College, and Centennial. And you can come on up. And since joining Centennial in 2009, Melissa has been involved in the development of courses for both international business management, global business management programs, and as of May of 2019, she became the program coordinator for the Global Business Management Program. Please welcome Melissa, who's going to facilitate questions from the audience and be our distinguished moderator.
Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting me. I'm happy to be here and see such a full room. And as was kind of indicated before, the last sort of big event I went to pre-pandemic was actually the Women Inspire event in 2020, so I'm happy to be back here again. So I would like to invite up to the stage the entrepreneurs that will be sort of sharing their stories with us today. So if you could please give a warm welcome to Sarah Syed, Tosin During, and Eloisa Sliman as they make their way up. Fingers crossed that all of these work well enough. I don't know. Hello? Maybe? Okay.
Hello.
All right, great. So maybe since Tosin, we confirmed that yours works, why don't you start by introducing yourself, telling everybody a little bit about your background and a little bit about the business that you've helped found.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tosin During, and I am one of 3 co-founders of Beauty Braids and Beyond. It is an online beauty supply retailer that is reclaiming and revolutionizing the beauty supply industry by utilizing technology, innovation, and education to address our clients' unique hair, skin, and beauty needs.
All right, great, thanks. Sarah?
That's an incredible initiative. I'm really excited to learn more about it today. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah. I'm an 18-year-old innovator, climate activist, and I'm also the founder of You Are the Change. My journey started really early in grade 4, and now I'll be studying in university this fall, so I'm really excited to take my career further in terms of my climate advocacy. I'm really passionate about technology, specifically AI, nanotech, and material science, and that has led me to develop a prototype that can remove 98% of oil, heavy metals, and different organic compounds from water. I had the chance to consult for the United Nations on a project with this mentorship program called the Knowledge Society. and I'd be more than happy to talk about that later on. A little bit more about You Are the Change, since that's more of the focus that I'll be talking about today. You Are the Change is a youth-led organization, and we work with youth to build intergenerational solutions and intergenerational dialogue surrounding climate advocacy, climate justice, social justice, etc.
Oh my goodness, I'm not really sure what to say after all that. My name is Eloisa Sliman. I'm the founder and owner of Liberty Movement and Wellness. We work with women, for women, we're women-owned. We run a yoga and Pilates studio in downtown West End, and we've been around for 15 years. I'm also a doula and work extensively with women. We also train women in women-centric practices such as assisting in birth, helping people, teach people how to teach yoga. We have a training program, and it is my pleasure to be here to speak with you today. Thank you.
So one of the things that is sort of integral to really starting your own business is having a clear vision, or as I talked to Eloisa about a little bit before the panel, passion for what you're doing. So I'm wondering if, Tosin, you could talk a little bit about what sort of inspired you to start your business, what your vision is, and how that has affected your business journey so far.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd like to preface this by saying that the beauty supply industry is almost a $2 billion industry in which Black women are the main contributors and financial consumers of this industry. However, despite having such a high purchasing power parity, they are often left out of leadership roles within this industry. So my business partners and I, obviously through our collective experiences, beauty and skincare and hair was something that we were really passionate about. So we wanted to create a platform that within our mission is breaking the barriers of beauty, and that's twofold in the sense that, one, we obviously want to break the traditional conformity of beauty within the beauty supply industry and just the beauty industry in general, but we also want to be a revolutionizing and just break the industry, the traditional framework of the industry, by having, creating a platform in which Black women, especially those with textured hair, are able to learn about their hair care and all the educational requirements that are attributed to their hair care by fellow Black women, because it obviously was something that was lacking within the traditional framework of the beauty supply industry, and we just wanted to be the ones that could reflect that change.
Great. All right, so Sarah, I think I have an idea as to sort of what has inspired you, but I guess if you want to talk about sort of your inspiration as a climate activist and how that's sort of parlayed into your business a little bit.
Definitely. So there were two pivotal sort of moments that made me found You Are the Change. And the first is sort of this stereotype that young people can't be innovators, or that, for example, we need to wait until we have a degree in science, STEM, we have a PhD, and then after that we can start being change makers and innovate. And this was something that I faced early on, particularly in grade 8, when my friend said, well, we're graduating middle school and now we're entering high school, but it's so unfortunate we have to wait another 4 years before we can start actually making a difference. And that really made me think that, well, I don't really want to wait. There is no time. The time is now to take action, especially for critical issues like climate change, social justice. And so I really wanted to start an organization that helps build intergenerational solutions and also gives youth the skills and the confidence to build their own projects by leveraging their passions as a medium of change. So whether that be entrepreneurship, STEM, creative arts, or maybe even a combination of those. And that's sort of what inspired me to build You Are the Change. And I hope to continue its work. Our most recent project was a hackathon with over 1,000 participants, and more than 40% were female students. So that was very exciting to see a lot of female leadership in terms of STEM and innovation. And right now I'm working alongside the David Suzuki Foundation and the Starfish Canada to take this organization to the next level and host many different programs in the space of entrepreneurship and the creative arts.
Thank you. So Eloise, as you're perhaps a little bit further on your entrepreneurial journey, if you could maybe give us a little insight, maybe as to, like the others did, what started your initial sort of inspiration for starting your enterprise, and then maybe how that vision has changed over time.
Okay, so how did it start? At 5 months, I was 5 months pregnant, and I lost my job at the time. I had been teaching movement part-time and decided at the time that I was going to do it full-time, which sounds really boring today because there's a yoga and Pilates studio on every corner in every neighborhood. But at the time, I lived in Liberty Village, in not the Liberty Village that is today, but in an old warehouse building. And I said to my partner, I just need one window, because we had these big windows in our space. And I said, I'm going to start a studio here. And he thought I was insane, and I did. And I was right next door to Chorus Entertainment, where there were lots of women that didn't have anything to do with their lunch hour. There was nothing in Liberty Village. There was no, I don't think the metro was there at the time. You had to walk really far to go anywhere. So I had this captive audience, and that's how we started our studio. My vision at the time was I wanted to be around my child, and I wanted to do things with my child or be participating with my child as I was working. And so this enabled me to do that. And I literally grew it through sweat equity and would work tirelessly teaching, and eventually it grew, essentially. So my vision was originally to be around my child while I was working and to be able to create income, and I'm successful in that, and of course it changed over time. Now I have a successful business, and my focus is women, so I work a lot with women in hormones, I work as a doula, I train people in all of those things, and it's really exciting to be able to do that and to be able to help other women progress and do things that they progress in a way to help other women create their own lives in the same way that I did.
Okay, we'll stop the clapping between each one because that'll be very time consuming, but I didn't want to interrupt mid-clap and make sure that Eloisa got her just due. But for now, we'll just hold it to the end. Obviously, from an academic perspective, since I do teach, I think education is really important to women's economic empowerment. So I'm wondering if perhaps you guys could comment on maybe how your education has helped you leverage your business and maybe your thoughts about sort of investing in investments in education. So maybe Sarah, if we could start with you.
Of course. So I wholeheartedly agree with that statement. I think it's very important that women have the right to education, especially in the global south, because when a woman is educated, they are truly empowered. And there's this one saying that I truly love, and it's that, when a woman is educated, a pen can become a policy, and an idea can turn into an innovation. So we need to ensure that women are educated. And I want to approach this sort of statement from a climate perspective lens. And I want to look at the global south for a moment and realize that most of the time, women do not have the rights to an education, especially since women are sometimes deemed the water collectors of the family, which means that they travel long hours to get water for their family. And according to one statistic, over 2 billion hours are spent each year collecting water. And what often happens is during the increased drought and global warming, often girls are pulled out of school and end up becoming the water collectors for the family. And this increases the risk of child marriage. And so I really think that we need to change this cycle. We need to break this cycle, this poverty cycle. And the first step in doing that is ensuring that young women have the right to an education. And to touch on the CSW 67, the United Nations Women's Forum's theme this year, it's all about digital innovation and equity for everyone. And so I think it's really critical that young women have the opportunity to learn about all the different skills, from coding to, for example, quantum computing, all the different exponential technologies. And to start with that, this can sort of change the system. Because right now we need more women to have the right to have a seat at the table, to be a part of the conversation, since women are being disproportionately impacted by the climate crisis. So when women are educated, it can help build better climate strategies through two mediums. And the first is to leverage climate leadership through catalytic action, whether that be entrepreneurship, for example. And this also includes ensuring that every job will be a climate job to increase green skills. And so really, women will play a huge role in developing the blueprint for climate action moving forward. And I hope to see more women representation this coming COP28.
Thank you, but no. Tosin, if you want to continue.
As highlighted in my introduction, I am one of 3 co-founders, and we actually all met in our undergraduate year of university. So I have an undergrad in international studies and a master's in public policy and digital society. My co-founder, Rechie, has an undergrad in communications and political science, and Jada has an undergrad in political science and economy, and she actually completed her last year of law school in 2020 in the midst of pandemic. So with that being said, our undergraduate experience provided us with a lot of the tools that we did not know that we needed. Obviously, when we embarked on this entrepreneurship journey, it allowed us to expand our capabilities and have the knowledge to enter a competitive market at a full speed and do it with such grace and transferable skills that obviously when you're in university, you don't think that these skills will be of use. You think, okay, like this is a degree, maybe I don't know what I'm gonna do with this, but I definitely think that our academic background definitely put us in a very unique position to actually transfer those skills. And I definitely think that for women entrepreneurs, academic backgrounds and just knowledge in general is very important when you want to enter the markets at a competitive advantage, in which obviously our male counterparts have a lot of advantage. And so I think knowledge is very useful in when we want to break the barriers and have just the academic resources to be able to, be competitive entrepreneurs and break the glass ceiling.
Okay, thank you. And I can't help but reinforce the fact to my students that are in the audience that you don't know what you're learning will be important yet, but it will be important at some point. So Eloise, if you want to share your thoughts here.
Sure. I do believe education is extremely important, and I think it's a privilege that we have, especially here in North America. Not everybody has that privilege. Not everybody can even afford education. In some other countries, you have to pay for it. So we are extremely lucky as women that we have so many different programs to help us succeed in whatever it is that we want to succeed in. So I think we should be grateful for that, for sure. That being said, I also think, like you were saying, it doesn't matter what you study, it will influence anything that you do in the future. There's always something to be gained from what you study, and it's never too late to study something new. Everything affects us, and everything we learn changes our course and makes us better, in my opinion. I myself am studying Chinese medicine because it seems like a really great idea to study for 7 years. But that's basically what I have to say. So yes, keep studying, and keep studying all kinds of things, because you will only grow, really. Thank you.
Well, and I certainly think that's true, that, again, as you continue to learn, you develop new passions, and that can sort of spur you in a new direction. And certainly you don't know what you don't know, and so it's important to stay interested and maintain sort of your professional development throughout your career. I know that a few different people, the introducer as well as Dr. Oyelade, mentioned some of the statistics associated with sort of the challenges that women in particular face with the pandemic. And obviously we had a lot of women drop out of the labor force because of the sort of extended pressure on them. In response to that, a few government initiatives have been announced to try to help promote, and as was mentioned, to help promote women entrepreneurs in particular. But I'm wondering, maybe Tosin, if you can talk about your experience with some of those sort of supporting initiatives and programs.
So I definitely had the pleasure of embarking in 3 initiatives that definitely helped accelerate the trajectory of our business. One of those being the Casa Foundation, the Black Advisory Hub. We also had the pleasure of embarking in a program in Invest Ottawa. And then we also had, we were one of the recipients of the FACE loan for the government initiative to support Black businesses. So I definitely think that the acknowledgement that women entrepreneurial businesses place an importance in the economy, and as well as just breaking the glass ceiling. I think it was really important and very helpful to our business that we were able to have that support from various initiatives and have the resources to be able to accelerate our business further, learn what we needed to do to come in at a competitive rate. And I'm just very grateful that these resources and initiatives have existed. Obviously, the pandemic kind of highlighted the need to place an emphasis on supporting women businesses. So I definitely think that that has helped accelerate the trajectory of our business, and I'm grateful and excited to see how women businesses are supported moving forward in the future.
Thanks. Maybe Sarah, if you could talk about any initiatives that you've been able to take advantage of.
Of course. So again, approaching from sort of like a climate perspective, since that's my main focus, and sort of the Gen Z solutions, there are a few programs out there that really helped me. So I referred to this in my introduction called the Knowledge Society, and so that organization really helped me build this STEM aspect of my organization. And there were a lot of different sort of awards and different programs and mentorship opportunities that I had. So with the Starfish Canada, I'm one of their top 25 under 25 environmentalists in Canada. And with that sort of program comes along a mentorship throughout the summer. And so this is a free program for youth who want to build their own organization or take whatever project they're currently working on to the next step. And so sort of that's where I can add to the programs that have helped me. But I do think that in terms of a general perspective, it's really important that the innovation that does take us forward, the entrepreneurship that does take us forward, is built on equitable sort of representation, and to ensure that those who are disproportionately impacted in business, which is women, do have the opportunity to have their projects published, not just only during International Women's Month, but every single month, because every month should be International Women's Month. And so I do think that today we should celebrate the milestones. So during March 8th, the International Women's Day, I had the chance to attend one of a conference. And one of the statistics that was said is that senior management roles grew up to 32% in 2022. So that means there's 32% of female leadership in terms of, let's say, having a president or CEO as a female in the board. And so this is the highest number ever recorded. So 2022 sort of broke the glass ceiling, but I do think that there's still more work that needs to be done. So for example, just the other day on LinkedIn, I read that the World Bank has never had a female president, which is really shocking. And so now they're opening up nominations, so hopefully 2023 will be the first year for this. And so I think that while we are celebrating these achievements and these milestones, we should not lose sight of our goal for the future. We should not lose sight of the work that still needs to be done in terms of Sustainable Development Goal number 5, gender equality, and to ensure that also there are transformations in institutions as well, since we can be the spark of that change, but it's also going to take everyone, including policies, governments, nonprofits, and people from the private sector and public sector.
Thank you. So I think certainly you have been able to take advantage of some recent programs and initiatives. I'm wondering if, Eloise, you could talk a little bit about maybe what you see now versus when you started your business and the kind of programs that were available then.
Sure. So at the time that I started my business, there were not very many. There was actually not a lot of help for women. And I remember going to the bank and asking with my business plan, and asking for some help, and I was basically laughed out of the bank. And so I basically started my business with none of the help that so many people have today, which is amazing. It's changed so much in 15, 17 years. So, millennials, Gen Z, have a lot more available to them, and future generations, Alpha too, have a lot more available to them than we did. So take advantage of it. You also have so much more ability to do things now as a small business with the internet. The internet's so amazing, as we know, right? We didn't have that. When I started my business, I guess it was 17 years ago, people used to mail me checks for classes. They would send me checks in the mail to pay me. I know you're like, that's impossible. I know most people here probably can fill out a check, but when was the last time that you did? Anyway, so with the internet, with Interac, it's much more helpful for a small business with being able to design, like you design your own website, right? There's so much stuff that you can do on your own that even 15, 20 years ago, you weren't able to do. And never mind, we're not even talking about AI and the capabilities of that, which is a whole other spectrum and will be an entire revolution that we cannot even conceive of.
Absolutely. So it's so nice to see these young entrepreneurs taking advantage of a lot of the programs that exist today, and good that we are seeing improvement. But as we all know, there's certainly more work to be done. So I'm wondering, Tosin, if you can talk about any gaps that you found in particular with regard to the offerings in women's education for entrepreneurs particularly.
Not necessarily in education, but I think that one thing that we did struggle with at the beginning of our entrepreneurial journey was funding. Obviously, at the beginning, like Eloisa stated, when we tried to receive a line of credit, like a business line of credit, although we had what we thought at the time was a solid business plan, the bank said, listen, like we understand that you'd like to, start big, but we can't give you that much. And obviously we want to enter the market at a competitive rate. So it was really, really hard for us at the beginning to acquire funding for our business. Luckily, with a lot of the great initiatives that we had, we were able to secure funding in the end. But I think that was one of the hurdles that I definitely think that a lot of businesses starting out experience. And I think another thing that I personally think that is missing, but is lack of representation and seeing women in leadership roles. I think that's definitely important in the sense of seeing yourself in other individuals and aspiring to be like that. So I think those are the two gaps that I could see that definitely require more work within entrepreneurship roles.
Absolutely. Maybe, Sarah, if you could kind of answer that question more from rather than female perspective, a youth type perspective, what additional support could be there for people who are on the younger side of the spectrum?
Of course, and I had to address a very similar question earlier in January at the McGill Modeler United Nations, so I'm really excited to talk about this because there are quite a few gaps, I think, especially for Gen Z when they're trying to enter sort of this space in the entrepreneurship. And I think the first one in particular is all about the lack of community, I would say. So there are multiple different youth-led organizations. If you just take a look through Instagram, there are so many, and they touch on different sort of mediums, not just about climate justice, but if you go even deeper, because climate change is sort of like this puzzle piece, there are many subcomponents, and so with sort of these youth organizations, there is no sort of higher organization that connects all these youth organizations together to share their experiences, to sort of create a youth by youth mentorship program. And I think that is so important that, especially as youth who are trying to build their own organization, for example, that they have the opportunity to work collectively, or maybe to have a place where they can learn more about partnerships and learn from each other. And I think that's one of the first things. And at the same time, in terms of that as well, there are not that many resources out there that compile Gen Z, let's say, grant opportunities or funding opportunities. And so just recently there has been a rise of youth-led newsletters that talk about the important issues that we may, let's say, not hear about all the time. And so I think that it's really important that we sort of start to create this space where Gen Z can work together. And at the same time, to add on to that, we need more formal spaces for youth to work together. And so what I mean by that is sort of, let's say, like, take a look at COP27. We had the first ever youth pavilion, but at the same time, we still need access and funding to enter those spaces because a lot of youth were not able to fly all the way to Egypt or secure funding to be a part of COP27. And so from my own experiences as well, I'm often the only 18-year-old in the room. And so just earlier in January and earlier on in November of 2022, I had the opportunity to speak at Eco Impact and Highway H2O, both sustainable sustainability forums. And unfortunately, because now I'm bringing this Gen Z perspective, but unfortunately I was the only Gen Z there who's bringing this sort of perspective to the conversation. So I think it's really important that more Gen Z are involved in the conversation. And one last point, there is also a lack of opportunity for young people to get direct funding. And so while there are grants, like I've talked about and as well you have mentioned, there is no sort of more focused investment opportunities. So I think we need to shift from nonprofit and grant funding, which is amazing, but there needs to be an opportunity for youth to get investment so that we can leverage our voices to fund different solutions globally.
Great, thank you. One of the big challenges that entrepreneurs, or rather people who are currently employed, face and when they think about entering entrepreneurship is that fear of failure, that risk of not sort of finding success. And so that really prevents a lot of people from pursuing an entrepreneurial journey. So I'm wondering if, Eloisa, you could talk about maybe some of the struggles with that transition of moving from a traditional role to an entrepreneurship journey, and any sort of suggestions you have in order to sort of see success if you do choose to follow this entrepreneurial path.
Well, I think the first thing is you have to have some form of passion or drive. So obviously, if you want to leave a 9-to-5, you're not loving it, right? So, but you're loving maybe your paycheck, or you're kind of happy with the fact that you're getting a regular paycheck, but you're not really inspired by what you're doing. So what you need to do, I guess, or what should be done, is you need to take the skills that you're using at your 9-to-5 and find your passion and use those skills to do your passion. Now, it's going to take extra work, obviously, because you're going to have to, maybe you have kids, so you're going to have to get up at like maybe 5 or 6 in the morning and work for a couple of hours before they get up. Maybe you don't have kids, but you're going to have to work after work. You're going to have to budget your time so that you can leave your job at 5, not work. You're working 9-to-5, not 8-to-8. So make sure you leave and give yourself time to work on your dream or whatever it is that you want to do. It's all about you, really, at the end of the day. So it's your time. And I think sometimes we think about money, but we don't think about the time that we're spending when we're working. It's your time, and you can never get that time back. So just make sure whatever it is that you've decided you're going to do, that it drives you, it moves you, you want to do it. Because otherwise, why are you going to get up in the morning at 5 o'clock to do something? You're not going to want to get up. You're going to be like, ugh, right? So you have to make sure whatever it is something that moves you, something that you're really excited about, that you want to get out of bed and do. And the more work you put into it, eventually you'll find the 9-to-5 just will go by the wayside, because you will be successful in what it is you're doing, because you want to do it, and because you love to do it, and because you're working towards it. I don't think anybody ever makes $1 million by saying, I'm going to make $1 million, that's all I want to do. There has to be some kind of passion about what it is that's making them that money. And also, as somebody was saying earlier in their opening notes, it also has to be something where you're getting back. So it's good if you're doing something where you're getting back from the community, or getting back from what you give, what you get out. Sorry, you get what you give. So you have to put something forth that is also equally enriching, not just in a monetary way. The money comes later. It will be there. It's part of the process. And trust in the process.
I think that is a great sort of note to kind of end things on this idea that, again, the money will follow, but make sure that you're doing something that you're interested in, and also engaging in the community. And that's part of what events like this are about, that networking component, getting to find ways not just to focus on the funding aspect, but to find people who are like-minded, who can help support you, maybe emotionally, maybe through that connection, etc. So hopefully we will be able to continue building on that and building those connections throughout today. I want to thank the panelists today for joining us, and now you can all clap. And thank you again to Casa Foundation for having us, and we'll allow the next people to take on. Thanks.
Wow. Yeah, let's have another round of applause for those amazing women. Great stories. Thanks. Great job, Melissa. I love that it was different generations doing very different things. And despite our age differences, I think there is a commonality for all women. And we're sort of in the same, we're all in it together, regardless of our age. We're going to start with our next panel right now. It's how women create sustainable wealth. How's that sound? Sounds good to me. Sustainable wealth. It's something worth talking about. Our moderator is Kayla Isabel, CEO Startup Canada. So we'll welcome Kayla to the stage right now. Wonderful. Come on up, Kayla. Kayla is the Chief Executive Officer, you can come up, at Startup Canada. It's the gateway to Canada's entrepreneurial ecosystem. So Startup Canada's mission is to connect Canada's entrepreneurs with the tools, community, and support that they need to start and build their businesses. Kayla's dedicated her career to supporting entrepreneurs, and she's passionate about leveraging the power of storytelling in the business community, particularly for women entrepreneurs, as the host of her own podcast, Startup Women. Kayla's been awarded the 2022 Top 40 Under 40 recognition by the Ottawa Business Journal and Ottawa Board of Trade. Well, we look forward to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and hello everyone. Hello everyone. I'm so excited about this next panel. I'll ask my panelists to potentially join me up on stage, and we'll kick into what I think is arguably the most important topic to talk about during International Women's Week, International Women's Month, talking about women's entrepreneurship and women in general. Yes, we need to spark this inspiration and this enthusiasm and this support for women founders, but if we are not putting money into that conversation, we're not going to be able to scale and support women in the way that they deserve. So we'll be talking all things wealth and hearing the perspectives of our incredible panelists today. So please join me up on stage and we'll start with some introductions. Okay, great. So I'm joined on stage by three incredible panelists here, and we've got a tough act to follow. That first panel was absolutely fantastic. We have Crystal, who's the National Manager of the Women in Enterprise Initiative of TD. We have Charmaine, the co-founder of the Black Opportunity Fund, and Jody, the Regional Vice President of TD Private Wealth Management of the Metro East region. So I'll ask each panelist to do a brief introduction of your role and what you do, Altai. Jody, kick us off.
Sure, thanks. I'm delighted to be here. I lead a team of wealth management professionals who provide investment management, banking, tax and estate planning, expertise and advice to high net worth clients and their families to help them build, grow, to help them manage, grow, and protect their wealth. I'm also the executive sponsor of the TD Wealth for Women program, which is focused on helping women build financial confidence and take charge of their financial future, something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and our team of Wealth for Women champions are also incredibly passionate about.
Amazing. Thanks so much. Charmaine.
First of all, good morning, good afternoon to everybody. I am really happy to be here, and I do echo what Kayla said. The panel before us was extremely inspiring. My name, Charmaine Emerson. I'm a marketing communications strategist, and I'm an entrepreneur. I've founded a communications firm that's called Cultured Communications, and the thing that brings me the most passion is being a co-founder of Black Opportunity Fund. Black Opportunity Fund was started 3 years ago. I am so proud of it. I am a mother of 3, and when I think about what we created with this fund 3 years ago, which was based on creating economic empowerment and social empowerment to as many Black communities as possible across this country, it almost makes me want to cry almost every single time. And we are running out of the gates with the change that we are making. That's what I do.
Incredible. That's passion right there. Crystal.
Thank you. A little bit of TD overload for you today.
We love you.
So I'm rounding out the panel from TD. So I'm Crystal Van Westrup, National Manager, Women in Enterprise. You might be thinking, what does that really mean? I lead the business banks segment on women-owned and women-led businesses. I've been with the bank for 16 years in sort of traditional business banking roles in the field. And about 2 years ago, I had this opportunity to join this team and take the strategy national that was piloted in Quebec. And it's been probably the most fun, the most rewarding, and the most growing I've done personally in my entire career. I'm incredibly proud of the fact that we are doing this on a banker by banker basis, educating them sort of one at a time. And we also have a passionate group of accredited bankers that we fondly call we bankers, who have done additional training to understand more about unconscious bias as it pertains to women business owners and leaders accessing a relationship with a financial institution. So that's a little bit about me, but I want to just echo that previous panel. I was sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, I am just a banker. Why did they bring me here? Hopefully I can bring a little bit of value to the conversation, but ladies before us, you're incredible and amazing journey.
Yeah, let's just do another round of applause for the panel before us. Amazing, amazing. So to kick off the conversation, I want to get our panelists' perspective on what sustainable wealth actually means to each of you, because we talk about, wealth management, we talk about funding, financing from all these different perspectives, and I think we approach it through different lenses, both by our lived experiences and the roles that we have in our organizations. So Crystal, what does sustainable wealth mean to each of you? And then I'll go across the panelists.
Yeah, thank you. And this actually got me thinking, the previous panel. I had a very short answer here that I wrote out saying, uninhibited barrier-free access for all women, especially with diverse backgrounds. But what does that really mean? I think the women that we just heard from are a perfect example of why we need to provide that access and break down those barriers and, quite frankly, help the financial industry. And I'm sure that you've seen it as well, in understanding that women typically have businesses that provide a social good and impact to the community. And that's not necessarily your traditional brick and mortar manufacturing facility. And so that might be more difficult for bankers and traditional bankers to get their heads wrapped around in providing financing. And, quite frankly, before I came into this role, that would have been me. We were together on Wednesday where I shared the story that I had this blind spot in my career for a good 14 years of why am I not talking to women. And so I feel very passionately about helping my colleagues, myself, others in the industry understand why it is important that we support women's businesses and provide access to funding, but all forms of capital, whether that's equity, funding, financing, grants, all forms of capital to bridge that startup phase, prior to being ready to be in a bank-ready business for traditional borrowing. Where are we getting the funding from for those startup phases? And, more equity needs to go to women as well. And so, I think that's what the sustainable question really means in my mind.
Amazing. Charmaine?
I think it's music to my ears to hear financial institutions saying that they want to help more women because there have been a lot of challenges around that. And I do know that the policies are changing at financial institutions, which I think is very significant. For me, however, what does sustainable wealth mean? It means I'm a mother of 3 children, and for me, it's about legacy, number one. It's about making financial decisions that will not just sustain my own little world with me, Charmaine Emerson, as an investor, but what does it mean for my children? What does it mean for my grandchildren? I'm here to create legacy. It's the same thing my mother did when she immigrated from Jamaica and came here with nothing but perseverance, respect for herself, and determination and love for her children. And I'm going to do the exact same thing. It's the least that I can do is to create legacy making the right financial decisions, not going out and buying those shoes that I want to buy every single day, but making sure that I am putting money away for tomorrow, and that tomorrow is actually invested in something that my children will benefit from. So I'm about long-term gain and not quick turnaround.
Jody.
Can you hear me? Okay. That's music to my ears, because that is something that our advisors are constantly trying to impress upon clients in terms of that, thinking about the future, leaving a legacy, protecting what matters, and making smart choices for you and your family. To me, sustainable wealth means, in the context of personal investing, means demystifying the wealth services industry by building financial literacy and confidence through education, engagement, and advice. It also means understanding the need for change and taking action, particularly as it relates to women investors. The majority of women believe that the financial services industry was designed by men for men. And many women are unhappy with the financial services industry. So we need to affect change, and we need to understand the unique needs and expectations of women and provide them with the service, the guidance, and the support that is tailored to their unique needs so they can build sustainable wealth and financial confidence.
Lots of music to all of our ears. This is great. This is great. And I think this year's International Women's Day, theme is pointing to that as well. It's not just around equality, so everyone having access, or the best illustration that I like, pulling on the shoes example, is everyone gets a pair of shoes. That is equality. Equity is everyone having a pair of shoes that actually fit. And when it comes to financial institutions, it's not just we all have access to loans, we all have access to these different elements, but what's actually the type of funding that's going to support us both personally and professionally, and having that confidence to make that decision using some of these resources. So in bridging that, what role do you think financial institutions play balancing that professional and personal side? Because money is deeply personal. We need it for our businesses and for our own personal livelihoods. As it pertains to entrepreneurship development, what roles do you think that the FIs really play in that? Jody, maybe we'll start with you.
So I'll speak to it again in the context of women's personal wealth. And I believe financial institutions play a key role in helping women build financial literacy and confidence when it comes to, and really encouraging them to take a more active role in their family's finances. Generally speaking, women tend to devote more time to their household needs, caring for children, caring for aging parents. And unfortunately, that leaves little time or energy to focus on ensuring that their financial affairs are managed properly. And when women are starting out, the priority is their careers, starting a business, starting a family. And as a result, they tend to delegate some, and those are the priorities. And then the financial aspect of their life is, down on the priority list. And as a result, they tend to delegate financial decision-making to their partner. And I think that is really unfortunate. And so I believe knowledge is power. And so we really, through our TD Wealth for Women program, are really focused on helping women become more comfortable in talking about money, that we really help them build the knowledge about their financial situation, and that they're not afraid to ask questions. And the great thing is that actually when you ask women, they really want to be empowered to take on more of a lead role in terms of managing their finances. They just want to have the knowledge to be able to do so. So that's why, again, I think it's terrific with our TD Wealth for Women program and Women in Enterprise, where we have a team of professionals that are specialized in understanding women's unique needs and working with them to put a plan in place to help them get to where they need to go. I truly believe that women need to prioritize their financial well-being, and it can be incredibly empowering when you are in charge of your finances and can feel comfortable about your financial future.
Crystal, anything to add on that?
Just quickly, I'll say part of what we talk to our bankers about is, yes, there's unconscious bias. Women also tend to be reserved in terms of what they are going to ask because they don't want to sound like they don't know what the right question is or what the answer is. And so, but it shouldn't be the burden of our clients or our prospects or the people sitting in front of us to open that dialogue. And so asking our clients, our bankers to ask the open-ended questions, where do you want to see your business? How are you going to achieve that? Have you thought about what the structure of your capital is to get there? Is, alleviating the burden of the women that we're serving to drive that change. We need to drive that change on this side of the desk, on this side of the table from the banker's perspective. But I did want to share one story very quickly in the context of what Jody was just talking about. I have been in banking for 16 years, and I just purchased my first mutual fund. And I'm telling you that because it is very easy to go day by day and get caught up in the routine. I have 2 young children. I fly across the country, and I've sat and listened to my colleagues talk about why it's important to take ownership of your own financial future, and I didn't do it. And I thought to myself, you know what? I just need to open up one of those direct investing accounts and figure this out. There's all these tools that make it easy. You don't necessarily have to sit in front of someone, but let me tell you, there are really great women, Jody and Yasmin out here, who have teams that want to talk to you. But it is simple, and you just have to take one step at a time to own your own financial future. And I'm speaking from my own candid personal experience. It is simple to just ignore it. So I really strongly encourage you, no matter where you are in the spectrum of your career or your experience, take ownership, because we don't have to delegate that piece to somebody else.
And if I just want to jump in on that and say, to add to that and say, what can financial institutions, what should they be doing? I can tell you, because I have, all my business is at TD. I'm declaring it right now. What a coincidence. I gotta say. But do you know why my business is at TD? Because I found TD to be the most equitable institution, financial institution. That's a big deal as a Black woman, because we have a lot of no's in our community. Access to capital is an issue. And, my non-Black colleagues that are in the room here today, you all might be saying, really? Like I've heard Black women and men say that, but is that real? I can tell you it's real. And I put it to a test at 3 financial institutions. I took my current business idea, exact same business plan that I wrote, by the way, and gave it to one of my white girlfriends and had her shop it around to see how much money she would get. And I did the same. How many times do you think I got denied? Every single time. Every single time. The exact same plan. Exactly the same. So what I say to you, what financial institutions need to do is to become more equitable and to be more diverse in their thinking when that entrepreneur walks into their building. And I'm with TD because I was denied the first time, and then I went back and I pushed and I showcased what the business was and why it made sense to invest. And TD said yes. So my housing mortgages, because we own some houses, everything is with TD. They won everything, hands down. And coincidentally, at Black Opportunity Fund, this is how I know TD is real. They're walking the talk. At Black Opportunity Fund, when we started this organization, almost 3 years ago now, it was a pandemic, right? We started in the pandemic. the first institution to step up was TD. And do you know how much they invested? $10 million. Like, it's outstanding. It is outstanding because TD said, you know what, Black Opportunity Fund, that mission that you have, which is to level the playing field for as many Black communities as possible in this country by providing economic empowerment and social empowerment, we back Black. That's what TD did. And so I say that is what we need across all financial institutions, is to recognize it's not equitable and the systems need to change.
That, I think, deserves a big round of applause. There we go. Yes, 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 yes. And that, I think, you know, talking around the theme of International Women's Day and all of these different events that we all attend, yes, women entrepreneurs understand these barriers that they're walking into, the bias that is inherent in many of these conversations with many types of investors outside of just the financial institutions. But without the systems change, we are going to be having the same conversation next International Women's Day and the year after and the year after. And so I think to this point of bringing in all of the different stakeholders that support women, making sure that there are strong commitments that are measured, that then we champion what is working, what systems change is actually moving that dial, and building trust within the community that potentially has not been there, rightfully so, in the past. So incredible illustration, and thank you for sharing that, Charmaine. So back to, well, maybe we'll veer back into the script of the questions that we had originally, but this is fabulous. I want to talk a little bit, women's purses and spending has gone up tremendously in the last couple of years, and that financial power can contribute to so much global growth and supporting even more women-led organizations through the power of purchasing, right? If we're supporting women through our own money. So I want to throw this maybe to Charmaine first around how women's growing financial power really contributes to global growth. What do you think that looks like?
Well, I don't know how many women in this room are entrepreneurs, but can we have a show of hands? Even if are you an entrepreneur or you want to be an entrepreneur? How many?
Amazing.
Hello, I'm every woman. I mean, we have financial power. We are consumer spenders, right? We're consumers, we spend, which means we contribute to the economic growth of the economy. Period. Full stop. So through our entrepreneurship efforts, we are doing our part to contribute to the Canadian economy that we live in. That's a good thing. The other thing is that we need, connected to that, financial institutions. I'm sorry, it's going to be a song I'm going to sing all day while I'm up here. We need financial institutions to get behind us and recognize that we're significant contributors to that economy. And then last but not least, I don't know where the government is, but we need government. Government needs to know that women are financially capable and we're great investors. And we don't just invest. We invest, yes, largely because of our heart. We think about the purpose. We have purpose behind our investments, whether it's legacy that we leave for our families or whether it's contributing back to societal gain through environmental impact or social impact. So again, I'm every woman. Yeah.
And you can be both purposeful and profitable. Yeah. But that's also that part of the conversation, right? Crystal.
I guess what I want to add to that is women contribute $150 billion to the economic activity in Canada. And with the strategies that the government has proposed and contributed to, there is a goal to double that. And a goal can be reached, but we all have to contribute to that. And I think it is incredibly important for us to recognize what are the barriers in reaching that. And the 2% growth that we heard about that has been achieved to date is fantastic, but how do we get to that 25%? Because the 25% is where we're going to get to the $300 billion. And the social importance and the social impact of what women bring to the economy is going to propel us forward past some of these problems that we hear about every single day. So, you know, I think there really is just that underlying factor of, you know, how do we get past those barriers to continue to bring wealth to the table to support that side of women entrepreneurship.
And I would just add that over the past 2 decades, women have made tremendous progress in terms of financial independence and pay equity. Today, women represent 48% of the workforce. They represent 2/3 of consumer spending, and they control $2.2 trillion in financial assets. In 2028, that number is going to be $4 trillion. So women are truly a force to be reckoned with. Now, despite all that progress, women still are challenged with the competing demands of career, family, and finances. And despite being highly educated and incredibly proficient in their area of expertise, they still lack confidence when it comes to their financial affairs. What is critically important, though, is at some point in their lifetime, 90% of women are going to be the sole financial decision makers, whether that be because of divorce, death of a partner or a spouse. And if they're not prepared to step up, it's going to impair their ability to make decisions. That's why it's so critically important that women get on the path to building financial confidence.
Agree. So I want to throw this to Crystal first, and then definitely Charmaine, of course. Why is it very important for women from underserved communities to be included in the process of sustainable wealth creation in Canada? Obviously, we need to include them in the conversation, but why do you think acutely it's important? Crystal?
Yeah, I was going to say, well, it just is, period. End of my answer. But, you know, I wrote a note here, but I really just want to touch on the fact that in order for Canada to continue to achieve its economic momentum and growth that we are planning on and fill the vacancy in the job markets that we know is there and have enough trades to support all of the construction that needs to happen, we have to rely on immigration. And if we have a huge population that's underserved, how much of a detriment is that to the equity that's being provided to all the contributing members of the economy? So I think it's critically important that we understand what are the barriers, how are we going to remove them? I feel like a broken record, but it's just the truth. You know, every contributing member from every underserved community should have the same access, the same opportunities. I feel that very, very strongly. And in the context of what I do on a day-to-day basis, intersectionality in terms of all diverse backgrounds and, you know, whether it's Black women or Asian women or 2S LGBTQ+, you know, I'm thinking of my colleagues in the diverse segments space as well. Like, we all need to be there for all women. Women isn't one specific profile. Women is all. And when we talk about 51%, it's all. And so we have to be there for everybody.
Charmaine?
Absolutely agree 100% with what you're saying. And picking up on immigration. We, this wonderful country that we live in called Canada, which I full-heartedly love and embrace. You want to know what Canada is? Canada is welcoming. Take a look at this room. Look around. This is Canada. Look at all your colleagues that are here. We all deserve the same opportunity. But we need to level the playing field so that we all have the same opportunity. So why is it important to make sure that everybody has a fair share at the wealth opportunities that Canada has to offer? Because it will benefit Canada. because it'll benefit you and your families. That's why it's important. Because when you level me up, I'm leveling up my children, and I'm leveling up my community. And collectively, we're all in it for Canada. And that's what we have to focus on.
Amazing. Looking at the wealth management sort of finance space overall, having been historically very male dominated, and we still see that, a lot in the investment community, looking at, venture capital, et cetera. In that space, often women are viewed in business and finance as, underconfident, more risk averse. There are these patterns and trends that we see in some of those conversations. How do we change this attitude towards women entrepreneurs and not necessarily assuming this lack of confidence or this risk aversion or these, tropes of what we think women entrepreneurs are entering into these conversations from the lens of? How do we actually change this attitude and this bias towards women entrepreneurs? Jody, maybe you can kick us off on that one.
Well, so I'm going to speak to it from the perspective of investment management. And I think it all boils down to a little myth busting and education. So while it's true that men may have more money in investment accounts than women, I don't think that that necessarily means that women are more risk adverse. I think it's better to characterize it as women are more risk aware, if you will. And women are more concerned about financial security than perhaps individual investment returns. And so when a woman looks at an investment, they tend to look at it from the perspective of suitability 2 times more than men, which is an important consideration, as well as they look at ESG factors, which we talked about earlier, which are critically important. And while certainly taking on risk can lead to, more financial rewards, I would also say that patience is also a very important consideration. And as we all know, women tend to be more patient. Therefore, I think they are well positioned and suited for the long term.
Interesting. Those are great points. Crystal.
I think that I had a point down here about unconscious bias again, and I think I've talked about it enough. You kind of understand that piece, but we just had a situation where a deal was brought to my attention, and it was about a woman that was acquiring a cloud-based accounting firm, and the comments that came back from our risk department. And I'm being transparent about this. So the comments that came back from our risk department were, but how is she going to manage the growth, and what does her background support in terms of running this business? And it was just a lot of character type questions, kind of ignoring the success of what was already in place with this company. And I got a call, here's the situation, is there anything we can do? And from my role, I'm not changing the risk decisions. I'm helping people realize and acknowledge that these conversations are still happening. And I happen to have a good relationship with the person that was opining on the file. And I just gave him a call and I said, hey, when we looked at this 3 years ago with XYZ file, what were your main concerns? It wasn't about how he was able to use his CPA degree to run this company. It was about what are the subscriptions and how long have they had them and what's the potential runoff? And we kind of just reframed it. And at the end of the day, we didn't get to the exact ask that was on the table. But what we got to was an offer and not a no. And the way that we positioned it was, this isn't exactly what you came to the bank for, and we want you to know that we're here to support you. We believe in your idea or your acquisition, And if you don't find another funder that's willing to be there, please know you at least have this option. And it is these simple, small conversations that continue to happen. And, you know, it is a reminder to me that although I feel like we're doing great things and we're having fantastic momentum and a lot of bankers in the field are, you know, really supportive, we still have that there. And I'm not sure how I want to wrap that up because it wasn't a story that I was going to share, but I think it's important to acknowledge that it's still there, and we are going to get past it, but it's still taking time.
Yeah, and we hear that all the time at Startup Canada from different founders, and, you know, in pitch competitions, that the questions women are asked are around this risk aversion and, you know, how are you going to mitigate these following elements, versus when men are offering the same pitch, it's about growth, it's about the opportunity, it's the potential, and it's about the idea. And that frustration is felt every single day, and to see that nudge and move in the right direction is promising. We need to see that transformation across every conversation to take out that bias. So we're working towards it, but we're definitely not there yet. Charmaine, anything to add?
I think it's wonderful that you shared that story with us, and it's indicative of the change that we need to see, which is we need more women in finance. Plain and simple. Because women understand women. Doesn't matter what we look like, where we come from, we're all the same. We are women, and we get that part. So we need more women in finance because it is still a boys' world, very, very much a boys' world. Women are making their way through, for sure, but it's so slow. It is really, really slow. So the more women, look at the difference that made. Look at the difference it made. You made that change. If she wasn't there, if she was some guy, well, that wouldn't have happened. That woman would have been denied. So it's just proof that we do need to diversify and open up our minds, and we will get towards the innovation and the solutions that we need.
Love that. And to the men in the room and our fabulous male allies, you can have that conversation at work. You can amplify and sponsor and champion women from that exact same lens. You know the data around the return you're probably going to get on that investment. So yes, we need more women in finance. We also need our men to be championing having more women being invested in. We'll also just give a quick shout out to some women-led funds that we've been working with, and Crystal joined Shelley, who was on our panel earlier this week, the 51 Sandpiper Ventures. They're incredible women-led investment groups that are popping up all over Canada that are really challenging this bias and investing in women, high-growth companies, and across very many industries. So if you want to learn more about that, happy to connect any of you with those folks. Talking about, you know, youth entrepreneurs in our last panel. Wow, like 18 years old? Come on, like what was I doing when I was 18? Jeez, definitely not as impressive as Sarah and Tosin. And how are you investing in women entrepreneurs, panelists? From mentorship, role modeling, skills development, we wanted to reframe this instead of, you know, what do they need versus what are we actually concretely doing that is working that might be helpful for our audience? And what roles have young women taken up potentially through that sponsorship or through that support that you've offered? Jody, let's start with you.
So our advisory businesses are very entrepreneurial in nature. And as we talked about, the wealth management industry is heavily dominated by men. And currently, women advisors represent between 15 to 20% of the financial services industry. And so we are uber focused on recruiting, attracting, retaining women advisors through recruitment, training, and development. And in fact, one of the key priorities in our TD Wealth for Women program is our women advisor strategy, which is all around recruitment of female talent. And it's anchored on three key areas of focus, and that is career pathways and recruitment, mentorship and development, and finally, building a culture of inclusion and a sense of belonging. I think a big part of our ability to attract more females into this industry is ensuring that we have role models that are visible and that they can aspire to. And I will give a short example. 3 years ago, in our private wealth management business, we had 0 female leaders in our business in terms of our executive leadership team. Today, fast forward today, we have 4 strong, powerful, incredible women leading this business. And as a result, we've been really successful in engaging in more conversations with females that want to get into the investment advisory business and investment advisory industry because they can see the potential. And I would also say that we just need to continue our work in terms of ensuring that we have strong programs, a strong support ecosystem, and a strong experience that will enable our female advisors to ensure they're set up for success and they can build a long-term sustainable practice. And when you think about it, really, being a wealth professional for women, I think is an incredibly, women thrive in these roles. They're really skilled at relationship building and particularly in working with female clients, and it doesn't have to be females, engaging with female clients, but I do see that many female clients do want to engage with female advisors. They really have a strong understanding of their needs, their perspective, their shared experiences, and so they can thrive in this business. And so again, it's a journey. We're not there yet, but I'm really super encouraged about the progress that we're making.
Charmaine.
At Black Opportunity Fund, we invest in entrepreneurs, and we have created some terrific partnerships with financial institutions, of course, TD frontrunner, but most recently we engaged in a program with CIBC Foundation that has basically, CIBC has invested in Black opportunity, period, when it comes to entrepreneurship. And what they've done and what they've said is, listen, we recognize that systemically there's an issue. We know that. And so when you talk about unconscious bias, it's also about training, right? Training your financial advisors, training the people that are assessing the applications so that they realize when they see, John Smith versus Bumi Adeoye, they have a bit of a bias with Adeoye, just without even thinking they do, based on Adeoye's name. And so, yes, we need to do a lot more of that training, but also I think one of the things we need to do, and that we're doing at Black Opportunity Fund, is recognizing that people are getting denied. So for us at Black Opportunity Fund, we are very focused on supporting Black-led businesses, Black serving to our community, because again, we want to collectively lift up economically our community, because it's good for everybody, right? And so what we've done through CIBC Foundation, there was an initiative that we did. We partnered with DoorDash. It was called the Black Food Energy Program. And I can't tell you how many female entrepreneurs we supported who are in the food business. So it's about, thinking differently and thinking about how you can support whatever your belief is, whatever your community is, giving back, doing as much as you can. So for us at Black Opportunity Fund, that's what we're focused on doing. And also for those entrepreneurs that have been denied by traditional funding methods, through the CIBC Foundation, there is a program in place that was put into place with Black Opportunity Fund, where we are saying to those applicants that were denied, come back and talk to us. We understand a lot more because our lens is a community lens. And so we can assess your applications in a much different way so that it is more equitable, so that that playing field is level.
Amazing. Crystal, anything to add?
Yeah, I was thinking, what do I want to talk about here? Because I could probably go on for 10 or 20 minutes, but I'm sure you all don't want to hear me talk that long. So just 2 quick things. The first being, one of the pillars of our strategy is collaboration, and collaborations on an internal and an external basis. And internally is, finding the right partners to put in front of our business owners, but externally is connecting with the organizations that provide non-financial services. Like, we're really great at providing a bank account and moving your money around and accessing loan products, but we don't do mentoring, networking, coaching. That's just not where our bread and butter is. And so we recognize that helping women to upscale their businesses requires access to some of those things that just don't come as easily as it does for men in their networks. And so we have invested in creating relationships with organizations that can help to support that. The other thing I wanted to say was, from your perspective as an entrepreneur coming into the bank, don't be afraid to ask for a female banker and interview them. You don't have to just accept who you're talking to, and talk to 3 banks. Obviously, I hope you choose TD, but at the end of the day, it has to be who you have a connection with, because that's how you're going to get things done. I booked an appointment for an RSP for my kids, and on the phone, they automatically chose the name. I'm bringing this up because what you just said. They automatically chose the name they could say and recognize. And I said, well, but is there a woman? And he said, oh, I don't know if it's a woman. I can't pronounce the name. And I said, oh, just look it up on Connections. That's our internal website that shows us who people are. And the person was female, not traditionally of what we would think is an easy to pronounce name, but you know what? At the end of the day, you sound out all the letters, and they're going to tell you if we said it wrong. So I said, no, I want to go with her. Like, book me my appointment with her, please. And he was like, oh, okay. Like, surprised. But I think we just have to challenge those stereotypes. Like, just don't be afraid to say, I want to speak to a woman. They'll find that person for you, because if you're about to walk out the door, they're going to find the woman. And if they don't stay. I mean that genuinely, whether it's at my bank or another one. Take the ownership to find the people that you want to talk to.
And I think I would just piggyback on that as it relates to investment advisors and wealth professionals. It's really important for women to find an advisor that they feel comfortable with, they connect with, they feel comfortable in terms of asking questions, who listens to you. That's a critically important element as well. So really, just to echo what Crystal said, you're in the driver's seat. Find someone that is going to explain things in a way that makes sense to you and that you feel comfortable in terms of working with.
So to wrap up our panel, I would love to just probe one final takeaway, one commitment you would recommend to everyone in the audience in terms of support that they can offer or an action that they can bring forward. What would be one final takeaway you want to leave our audience with? Crystal, let's kick off with you.
Oh, thank you. I hadn't really prepared that thought. One final takeaway, I guess, is just know that you are a powerhouse. You do have so much to bring to the table, and no's suck, but find someone else that's going to give you a yes. You deserve it.
That's a good one, Charmaine.
Mine's actually a piece of investment advice, because I see a lot of young faces in the room. And I'm going to say something, and you're going to look at me and go, are you kidding me? Why would I do that? Take out a life insurance policy. It is the fastest way for you to begin a legacy. I don't care, it might be your brother, it might be your sister, if you choose not to have children, or it might be your children. That once a month payment that you have to make on $1 million policy can change the life of whoever you leave as your beneficiary. Think about it. Think about it. It's absolutely worth it. You can go and get yourself a cup of coffee every single day. Do the math on what that comes to in a month.
Yeah, I love that legacy. Jody?
And mine is just a reiteration of prioritize your financial well-being and get on the path to building your financial confidence. And to echo Charmaine, consider as a start in terms of leaving a legacy, taking out an insurance policy.
Amazing. Well, round of applause to our incredible panelists. Thank you. Amazing. Thank you so much. So to all of the entrepreneurs in the audience, there are going to be a tremendous amount of barriers that you are told you may confront, that you will actively confront, but there are incredible opportunities as well. And I hope that every year we incrementally and hopefully in more dramatic ways in the next couple of years we make some of that progress on the system side and getting more capital deployed to your fabulous ideas, because there is no shortage of incredible ideas and businesses that women run. We need to just get more money right back into them. So thank you for being courageous and starting these businesses. We'll be there to support you. Thanks, everyone.
Nice work. Oh, nice work, ladies. I think there's a photo op. You want to do a photo? Okay. Okay, we'll get you. While they organize themselves for a photo, just keep in mind if you need a banking contact. You got banking contacts here. That's always nice, right? To have a friendly contact, a warm contact. And if you're young and you don't have life insurance, another good reason to get it is because you want to get it while you're healthy. Don't wait too long. That's my my amateur advice. Okay, so we're going to move on shortly. First of all, there are refreshments at the back, so please, if you're thirsty, whatever you need to top up your cup, just go back and grab it. A little bit later, there's an outstanding lunch that's going to be served. So if your stomach's grumbling, it's going to be satiated shortly, and you'll be glad you waited for it. I don't know about you, but I feel full with all this great information and the inspiring stories that we're hearing. Thanks to all the panelists who are sharing their own personal information. So we're going to move along now. Not everybody who wanted to be here could be here in person, but we're going to relay some messages from distinguished government dignitaries. So Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade, if you could come back up, please, and share those remarks. Thank you, ladies. Okay.
All right. I'm sure I speak the minds of all of us in the room today when I say that we've had, so far, it's been so far so good, such an enlightening session, very insightful, and I think I'm really excited and looking forward to the next panel, right? Thank you. All right, so next we're going on to the keynote session. If we can have a bit of quiet there. Some quiet, thank you. All righty. Right, so this particular session is focused on the keynote session. We had introduced quite a few of our keynote speakers, and some of them bring us Goodwill remarks, some of them are not here. I'm just going to read a bit for the Honorable Filomena Tassi. She's the Federal Minister for the Federal Development Agency of Canada, and she sends her Goodwill remarks. She particularly sends her warm wishes because she's actually the minister that supervises the execution of the Black Entrepreneurship Program, which funds the Casa Foundation and funds this particular program. And so I'm not going to read the entire speech. You know, it's not a morning for speeches, and I want us to have some fun. But then she, from the minister, she talked about how incredible the work of women have been over the years. And so a diverse economy helps us and helps our communities to thrive. And women are definitely a huge part of that community. Your collective efforts have been making a difference and are key to investing in the potential of entrepreneurs and contributing to a thriving economy, Filomena Tassi says. And so today, I truly celebrate all the women in the room, and I look forward to what you're able to achieve, particularly as everyone is in the progressively focusing on recovery post-pandemic. So ladies and gentlemen, let's just appreciate her for that. Thank you. And then, of course, the next keynote speaker that we're going to focus on and feature right now is Her Worship Bonnie Crombie. And so for Bonnie Crombie, she's the mayor of Mississauga. And so she sends her warm regards today, and we're just going to have that roll. All right, if you can have that, great.
Hello, Mayor Bonnie Crombie here from the great city of Mississauga, sending my best wishes to everyone attending the Women Inspire Forum, hosted by the Casa Foundation. I'd like to thank today's organizers for hosting this event that celebrates women in business and inspires women leaders, youth, and students to be role models in our world. Women-owned small and medium enterprises continue to be underrepresented. In fact, only 16% of Canadian small and medium-sized businesses are women-owned. Promoting women in business and coming together to talk about our strengths and journeys are just some of the ways we can continue to foster gender equality in leadership and empower women in business. Whether you're an established business, launching, or just thinking about starting your own business, you have taken a large step forward to break gender bias and have paved the way for another woman to succeed. On International Women's Day, we celebrate the women who have defied the odds and broken through barriers. Because of their courage, we have made progress on achieving greater gender equality, but there is a lot of work that still needs to be done. Whether it's in our schools, workplaces, or anywhere else in our community, we all have a collective duty to acknowledge biases that exist, challenge stereotypes, broaden our perceptions of gender and gender roles, and do whatever we can to break barriers so all women have a place in the world. In order to achieve a truly inclusive world, we must help women succeed by lifting them up, encouraging them to dream big, and offering resources and support. So I ask that today, on International Women's Day, you take a moment to think about what you can do in your everyday life that can help break the bias that women face. From action comes change, and it is my hope that our society becomes an even more inclusive place, free of bias, inequality, and injustice. I hope you enjoy this forum and learn something about yourselves and each other. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much, Mayor Crombie. A round of applause for Mayor Crombie. Thank you so much. And the last keynote speaker would be the Honorable Rechie Valdez. The Honorable Rechie Valdez is a member of Canadian Parliament, and she definitely understands what we go through as women, definitely as a woman herself, but more importantly because she's been a business owner, an entrepreneur before she went into politics. As a small business owner, Rechie Valdez was a creative entrepreneur. She understands the challenges and what it takes to transform your dreams into the realities of the current business markets. She's a highly sought-after mentor and a speaker to girls, youths, women, and female entrepreneurs. Rechie Valdez's experiences has shown her in the business world the importance of advocating for youths and marginalized groups, as well as uplifting and empowering all Canadians to have the opportunities to achieve all that they aspire to do. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me the Honorable Rechie Valdez.
Bienvenue à toutes et à tous. I am pleased to be joining you all.
Thank you so much, and thank you, and we extend our warm wishes also to the Honorable Rechie Valdez. and members of the executive team of the federal government present here today, and those ones joining us online. We see all the work and all the comments that's going on. And I'm sure for some of us also, I'm sure I speak the minds of a few other people who actually don't speak French, that we would really love to hear that part about the merci aujourd'hui and things like that. And if you do have some insights in that regard, please connect with me, because we're actually building a platform for people like yourselves and myself who don't actually have a firm grasp of all this toute l'équipe and all those other things that we've been talking about. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay, we promised you games and prizes. So we're going to have some games and prizes now. We're going to take a very short break to grab some refreshments, to network. We've heard that word used over and over. So we're going to take a 10-minute break to network, to use the washroom, and to play some games. So we're going to start with, you're going to take over and play some games, so stick around if you want to do that. We'll give out the prizes after.
Good morning, everyone. So I hope everyone's having a good time. So yeah, please feel free, grab some drinks, walk around. But I do want to say that we are going to be playing a Kahoot game, and you guys will be very, very interested in playing, because the grand prize is a $250 Visa card. Okay? So just, just to get them, those blood pumping. So you guys make sure that you sign in there and start playing, okay? So I want someone to see if you can shout out what you think the theme of the game is gonna be. Shout out a theme. What does anyone think the theme of the game we're gonna be playing, like the Kahoot game? Okay, I heard business, I heard women. I guess close enough. So if you're thinking International Women's Day, then you're correct. So that is it. Okay, so if you're a seasoned Kahoot player, you kind of know the drill already. If I can have technical put up the pin on the board and people can start signing in, please and thank you. So we'll just wait for the pin to come up. Okay, perfect. So you can either scan that QR code at the top, or you can go to www.kahoot.it and put in the game pin. So I want to see a lot of people's names up there. Remember, there are 3 prizes. So I already told you the grand prize. There's still
Organization of Women in International Trade, Toronto chapter, and I'm the Vice President for Membership, and we are very happy to partner with Casa Foundation for the event. So thank you, Olu, for the opportunity.
So we'll be giving out the first winner for CBN A. It's a $250 gift card.
All right.
So the second place winner is Julia Des. She won a $150 gift card. And the third winner is Sam. She won a $100 gift card.
All right. Congratulations to all the winners. You're the smarty pants. Now, Wendy, thank you for waiting. If you want to come up to the stage. And we will begin our final panel, and I will tell you about Wendy. Dr. Wendy Kakir is the Diversity Institute founder, academic director of the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, and research lead of the Future Skills Center. She is co-author here, if you want to.
You don't.
I do. No, you know what? Her resume is like this long, and really, we paired it to this. No.
Yes.
No, but you get,
doing this for a long time. That's
people want to know, Wendy. People want to know who's up here. So there's just a couple things we want to highlight. We'd cut out tons, believe me, but there's stuff that we want to say. So you're the co-author of the bestseller, Innovation Nation, Canadian Leadership from Java to Jurassic Park. She's a former VP of Research and Innovation. She's been recognized with a bunch of awards, including the Harry Jerome Diversity Award, the Bob Marley Award, the Canada-Pakistan Business Council's Female Professional of the Year, many others. She was also named a Woman of Influence by one of the 100 alumni who shaped the century by the University of Toronto, small little university here. You hold a PhD, an MBA, an MA, and an honorary doctorates from Laval and Concordia. So please welcome Wendy to the stage.
Thanks so much. Hoping the technology works, but one never knows. Magically, there it is. That's excellent. So before we get to the panel, which is really the highlight, I just wanted to take a few moments to level set and remind us of where we are and how far we've come. And I'm really grateful to be here. I think this is maybe the 5th. I don't know. I keep outstaying my welcome. I don't know why they keep inviting me back, but I'm very grateful to be here today with all of you. And special shout out to the youth who have joined us from Peel District School Board. Really, really excited that they made their way through the blizzard to get here today. So shout out to all the students in the room. I don't want to say much about the Diversity Institute. I really want to focus on where we are, how far we've come, and how far we have to go. I mean, I was reminded doing a presentation yesterday, and I was asked to do a bit of history because everyone was young and I was old and I remember stuff. It was 1928 when women got the vote, but it was 1960 when Indigenous peoples got the voting in this country. It's kind of horrifying. I remember when I was in school debating apartheid and segregation, right? Because I'm old enough to remember when in the United States, because of the color of your skin, you couldn't sit at the front of the bus, you couldn't drink out of a drinking fountain, and so on. So we have really made progress on a number of fronts, and it's important always with International Women's Day to remember that, but we still have a long way to go. And the Diversity Institute, we've got about 130 people, some who are here today, who work on different aspects of, I would say, pathways for women and diverse communities to economic integration. So that includes everything from ensuring that kids have a chance to complete high school and enter university, get good jobs, and then work their way up to the C-suite. And as my colleague Mohammed Elmi said in an article that was published recently, if you want to change who's in the boardroom, you have to start in the classroom. And that's why we're really excited about programs like Study Buddy and our work with Peel. We are the research lead for the Future Skills Center, so we're really focused on where are the jobs going to be and how do you get there, as well as the 50-30 Challenge, which really focuses at the top of the organization, and we lead the Women Entrepreneurship Knowledge Hub, which is really about ensuring that women have an opportunity to contribute as entrepreneurs, and some of you know about that stuff. Because we're in a business school, we're in the Ted Rogers School of Management, we really focus on the business case for diversity and inclusion. Not that social justice is not absolutely fundamental to everything that we do, but we find one of the ways to get organizations to really start thinking about this stuff in a serious way is to show the connection between their interests and equity, diversity, and inclusion. So whether it's the fact that there are 1 million unfilled jobs and the talent pool is increasingly diverse. So if you focus on white men, you're fishing in a very little pond. Or whether it's the changing markets, and we know lots of black women entrepreneurs, for example, develop very successful businesses because they recognize their markets that are not being served. Whether we're talking about driving entrepreneurship and innovation more broadly, because we know people who think differently, see things differently, and recognize opportunities, or whether we're talking about creating inclusive environments where people feel they can bring their whole selves to work and perform their best. And if that's not enough, then think about the risks. Think about the damage that gets done to brands who mess this up. And so one of the things we did in preparation for International Women's Week, year should be, is look at where we've come. So right now in Canada, the average woman earns 87 cents for every dollar a man makes. And there are a number of reasons for that we can get into in the panel. But when we apply other dimensions of diversity, we see that racialized women, Indigenous women, and so on earn even less. One of the reasons for this is what we would call occupational segregation. Women are underrepresented in science, technology, engineering, and math. They're underrepresented at the top of organizations. The list of 100 top paid women came out. There are 100 top paid CEOs in Canada, 100. There were 4 women. There were more men named Mark than there were women in the top ranks of CEOs. So there's a lot of stuff that really has not progressed, and we can go on and on and on. How many people in the room have ever been called bossy? No one ever calls men bossy, ever. Ever. And it was Beyonce who said, I'm not bossy, I'm the boss. But the gendered notions of what a leader is and how a leader behaves have very profound implications both for race as well as for gender. Women behave in certain ways, they're called bossy or other B words. Men do the same thing, they're called leaders. So we really have to be prepared to grapple with those fundamental issues. And while unpaid work is definitely an issue, single women without children still experience discrimination, harassment, and barriers in the workplace. So we can't imagine that support for childcare is the magic solution. It's part of the solution, but it is not the solution. And so I hope we'll talk about the range of things that need to happen, because this is where we are today. More women in the workplace than men and fewer at the top. And when we look at, for example, leadership on boards, in the city of Toronto, where half the population is racialized, that means for every white woman, there's racialized women. White women, or you will see a woman carpenter. Think about the impact that that has on shaping aspirations. And we can go through the roadblocks, but I want to talk about solutions, not problems. The issues of stereotyping, microaggressions, harassment in the workplace, mostly male workplaces, 48% of women experience or witness sexual harassment today, still. Me Too was a few years ago. We are still fighting this battle. And the socialization of girls is a big issue, without question. Little girls in grade 3 do better than boys in math, in grade 3, as well as in English. But when they're asked, are you good at math? Are you good at English? Little boys are more likely to say yes. Sorry to the guys in the room. But that confidence gap persists. And so we see that, for example, men will apply for jobs where they only have 60% of the qualifications. Women feel they have to be perfect. And so if you want women in leadership roles, you've got to be prepared to address these issues and tap them on the shoulder and give them the encouragement and support that they need. Microaggressions, massive problem. Massive problem. Bossy is one example. My other favorite one is, how many of you have ever been at a table where you say something and 3 minutes later a guy says the same same thing, and everyone goes, what a great idea, right? Because women are often invisible, and I'm sure if you're a black woman, it's even worse. But this echo chamber phenomena is well documented. It happens all the time, and organizations that are really serious actually monitor what goes on in meetings to make sure that women's voices are heard. And so we're really preoccupied with looking at broad solutions, at challenging assumptions about stereotypes, at promoting policies like childcare, at making sure that women in Indigenous communities have access to running water and homes and internet, but also challenging the stereotypes, because if you can't see it, you can't be it. Like, how many people know Celine Dion's one of the richest entrepreneurs in the country, right? She's worth $800 million, like pales in comparison to Beyonce. But there are a lot of women in culture, in services, in places we don't think of entrepreneurs. And we have to challenge that. The 50-30 challenge aims at gender parity and increased representation on boards and in senior roles. Already 2,000 organizations have signed up for that. And we have to look at policies from top to bottom in all organizations, whether we're talking about hospitals and universities, whether we're talking about banks, whether we're talking, we just did a strategy for Starbucks. And it starts with leadership. You have to look at where they're buying product, how they're designing their products, how they're selling their products, their HR practices, and how they engage with the community. At the end of the day, it all comes down to us as individuals, ensuring that we have the skills we need to succeed, but also that we lift as we rise, to make sure that when we witness discrimination, whether it's misogyny, whether it's sexist comments, whether it's people using inappropriate language, whether it's anti-black racism, that we do not remain silent, because every time there's a big scandal and a terrible case that becomes public, people knew. People knew. Even before the massacre at the mosque in Quebec City, people knew. People knew that guy had a gun and was dangerous, and nobody spoke out. And that's true with the Montreal massacre as well. So people know you have to see, if you see something, you have to say something. And that's the only way we're going to drive change. I wanted to end with this because an engineer colleague actually gave it to me, and for me it was one of the best ways to think about privilege, because privilege is not just about skin color. It's also about whether you can express affection for your partner publicly. It's also about whether or not you can display your religion publicly. It's about a lot of different things. And what he said is accomplishment equals talent. We're all looking for talent, plus opportunity, plus resources. If you grew up poor, if your parents didn't go to university, if they didn't speak English, you're in a very different situation than my little princess daughter, for example. And then what he said is that means talent equals accomplishment minus opportunity minus resources. So if someone presents themselves as an applicant, whether it's for a job or for venture capital funding, this is the formula that people need to think about. And, from my perspective, there's a huge opportunity to turn what are currently regarded as deficits into assets. And one of my favorite advertisements is this one. When Quebec was outlawing religious symbols, one of the hospitals in Ontario said, "Come to Ontario, we need doctors, because we care what's in your head, not what's on it." Thanks very much. So now, I want to invite our panel to please join me, because we've got lots of really interesting lived experience to hear about. And so I'm going to invite Christine Nakamura, Manjit Jita, Jennifer Fries, Adenike Yomi Fazian, and I apologize, my name was butchered. I will butcher your names, but feel free to correct the pronunciation. And are we missing? We might be missing. Oh, okay. There we go. Perfect. No, I'll stand. It's fine. I'm good. No, I'm good. So let's get started by asking people to quickly introduce themselves and their perspective on this issue. And I'll start with you, Christina, because you're close.
Okay. Hi, can you hear me? My name is Christine Nakamura. I'm Vice President of the Asia Pacific Foundation of Canada's Central Canada office. And the work that my team is working on is helping women entrepreneurs scale their businesses through access to international markets. Formerly, I am formerly a Canadian diplomat. I served in foreign affairs for many years and retired, and now I'm working for the Asia Pacific Foundation, doing it from outside of government. So thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Over to you, Manjeet.
Well, thank you very much. And let me say I'm so delighted to be here with all of you today to celebrate what has been International Women's Day, International Women's Week, and especially many of the young women that are here. And I know there's a whole group from Centennial College as well, so I'm delighted. I'm currently the Vice President of Industry, Employment, and Community Relations at Centennial College, where I oversee the collaboration and partnership between our business and industry partners with our faculty and education, really to try and improve those opportunities for students getting into employment, particularly in the skills trades areas, as well as businesses themselves. But my journey there is one that maybe I'll share with you. I'm a first-generation immigrant coming from India to the UK, parents who did not speak English, and parents who struggled, right? So that's a reality and an identity that I bring to who I am as a woman. And really, I started my career off in the community development sector. So that's what I always say is I'm deeply rooted in community. And from there, I worked in government for the City of Toronto for the last 25 years or so, lastly as the Director of Partnerships in the City Manager's Office, but also working on things like poverty prevention, gun prevention, and how community organizations and governments can work together, and really building that sense of connection between various disciplines, partners, and others. So at the core, I'm a partnership developer and a community developer. So thank you.
Thanks so much. And next, over to you, Jennifer.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I'm so excited to see all of your faces. I braved the storm that started where I was a little bit earlier than here, so very well worth the drive. So again, my name is Jen. I actually just recently left my full-time role at the Toronto Region Board of Trade, which is located a few floors up here in this gorgeous building. We're so happy to host you here today, where I headed up the commercial unit. I can see a couple of my former team actually in the room here. It's very exciting. And I'm now actually doing my own consulting practice, working primarily with creative industries to support their commercial thinking. Prior to that in my career, I was actually the youngest ever vice president at the Toronto International Film Festival, where I became a VP at the age of 31 and ran their partnerships unit, which was comprised of 5 different revenue streams. And that was a really exciting and, as you might imagine, glamorous job. And I have a lot of experience working in the agency and nonprofit sector, both as a consultant and as a full-time employee. So I've had a really interesting ride the last 20 years. Not too long ago, I was seated where you're seated for many of you at the start of my career, watching these kinds of panels and thinking, how do I get up there on that stage? Right now I'm sitting here and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, how do I get into your seat and your seat and your seat? You've done such amazing things. So it's just an honor to be among such amazing leaders and future leaders.
Thanks so much. And now, yes. Now we will go online, and I will ask Adenike, if I'm hoping I'm saying her name correctly, to join us. I believe who's calling in from Nigeria.
Yes. So I will say good afternoon from Lagos, Nigeria. And to make it easy for everyone, you can call me Nike. I think that'll make it easy for every one of us on this call this afternoon. I've been with KPMG for over 20 years, and I'm a director in tax division of KPMG Nigeria, where I manage immigration advisory and compliance services, payroll outsourcing, and tax compliance management services. But outside of what I do in KPMG, the bit that is interesting about my life is being able to do those things outside of work that I think make me to be complete. For example, I serve on the governing council of Lagos State University. I serve on the board of Mantle Top University Endowment Board, and I'm also part of the executives for KPMG Network of Women. And why am I excited about all those things? I see myself as being able to showcase that you can actually have a good family, and I'm a proud mother of 3, and been married for 3 decades. So I'm part of those that are trying to tell people that as a woman, you can actually have it all. Have a good career, have a good family, and also do things that make you happy outside of work. So I'm glad to be on this panel today to join these wonderful ladies that are there in Toronto. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So we'll kick it off with Jennifer. Can you talk a little bit about, I mean, it's really interesting because what you said in terms of your introduction just confirms what we know, which is often the cultural industries are not considered when we think about entrepreneurs and so on. So talk a little bit about what you think is required to promote gender parity and how it's a business advantage.
Yeah, absolutely. I have some really interesting experiences specifically from cultural sectors where I will say I do think they have tended to be a little ahead of the curve in terms of their interest in diversity and inclusion and going beyond that into equity and belonging. And so I really made the conscious decision to go into the cultural space in my mid-20s because I saw more opportunities there, frankly. And I also saw people who I was just really inspired to work with who shared those values with me. And so what I would say some of the key learnings from that is that really when you look more diversity broadly, not just from a gender perspective, when you look at more diversity in your teams, in your management teams, in your leadership teams, what you end up with is a lot of what you actually already shared, which is more talent. There's more people to choose from, more experiences, more collaboration. Again, women tend to be, I'm sorry to say it, better collaborators. Actually, some of the best partnerships people I've ever worked with, best business development people I've ever worked with have been women for that reason. More points of view for problem solving and addressing varying customer and stakeholder perspectives, needs, interests. You end up with better quality relationships. And that I think is really important when you are looking at developing a competitive business. And so when you have these things, what you end up with is a more motivated, collaborative, effective workforce. And what they do is they drive richer solutions. They drive, and identify different critical issues to solve. And so the specific example that I wanted to share was from TIFF, where having that diversity of thought in the executive team and in the management team actually led to a massive new stream of business for us. And it was around, I think, 2015, so well before Me Too, which, as you might imagine, absolutely rocked the entire entertainment industry. It was identified then that there weren't enough women in front of and behind the camera. So many horrifying stats about the amount of women with speaking roles, the amount of women who are actually, making the decisions and the calls around the development of content. And so, as an organization, and I do want to shout out 2 women in particular who identified this: Maxine Bailey, who is now the CEO of the Canadian Film Centre, and Michelle Mayhew, who is the former COO, and I gotta say, just like the muscle at TIFF. stuff. They came up with this solution. They wanted to create a program to support women in the film industry at all levels of the film industry, above and below the line, in front of the camera, behind the camera, and they created a program called Share Her Journey. And the original intention was to create mentorship for women in the industry, create more opportunities for women in the industry to have these impactful roles. But I gotta say, the side effect of it was, it ended up becoming such a huge focus of the TIFF brand and what TIFF was all about within the industry at large. And that actually resulted in a huge stream of revenue for TIFF that, of course, then, because of our leadership, we were able to reinvest into the community and into women involved in film and media creation. So ultimately, the point of this story, as you said before, is that diversity is not just about checking boxes and making sure that, we're hitting business targets, the basics that we hear, the do the right thing. It's actually doing the right thing for your whole business, your whole industry, the whole community. And in the case of this TIFF Share Her Journey example, had an absolutely massive macroeconomic impact on the industry at large. And so we can actually track that there were now more people, more women being hired within the film industry and advancing their careers as a result of this amazing program.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that. So going to Nigeria, which has a much higher rate of women's entrepreneurship, I will say, than Canada. In fact, it may be one of the highest in the world, and particularly for women. Nigerian women are especially entrepreneurial, and anyone who's met Olu knows that for sure. But Anike, can you talk a bit about KPMG and what it does to advance women-run businesses?
Thank you. I would say that for KPMG, maybe like about 5 years ago, there was a global decision to ensure that women are supported, whether in terms of career or business, female-owned businesses. And there was a target of saying that for all the companies we work for, we try to encourage them to have 33% of their leadership as women. And what KPMG also have in place is to have like what we call our own impact plan, which is like on 4 pillars of more or less supporting the society in terms of people, creating prosperity, the planet pillar, and also governance. So specifically, what Nigeria has done is we have some foundations where small-scale businesses for women start from, and we try to offer some pro bono services to see how they can move from just like a very small business to become major and dream of becoming large corporate entities in the country. And then we try to also get opportunities for them to attend various maybe like there's when there's a bid for a job, I think that we have men that qualify, that on a good day, they might not be able to put together the appropriate proposals to win such jobs. KPMG will come in and try to support them and represent them and say, this is what you need to do, put documents together, coach them, so that they also have a confidence as well as being able to compete with everyone. In Nigeria, for instance, it might not be that rampant in Canada, but in Nigeria, there's this societal bias on women, thinking that trying to focus on your career means that you're not a caring woman, that probably abandon your husband or children and trying to chase career at the expense of other family commitments. What we've done in KPMG is to actually showcase people that you come into the system, we want to recruit some people. We are deliberate of saying, if I'm going to hire 100 people, at least 40% of those that will qualify to the next stage must be a woman. In the sense that for every time we come across opportunities from our clients, from global clients, we try as much as possible to back up women, and then women-owned businesses to try to, from time to time, do due diligence to let them know things that can actually make their business not to survive the first 5 years. Because what we've seen in Nigeria is that lots of women are very, very eager to start a startup, but 2 to 5 years down the line, they are no more in existence. So what we try to do is to actually look out for those businesses and say these are the things you need to have for short term, long term, medium term and long term, and also to also diversify. To let them know that if you are doing this small scale of business, you can actually get support to move to the next level and do 2 other 3 things that can support that. And when COVID came, we realized that the female-owned businesses were most hit because some of their capital, they spent it on their families and abandoned the business to grow. So what we've done is to actually encourage them to go for facilities. And in Lagos State, where I reside, the government has a trust fund that was put in place to support women-owned businesses. That if you have 5 to 10 employees, the government provided grants to pay their salaries for about 1 year. That because of COVID, we support you, get back to business, bring the women together, and then we'll pay for the salaries for about a year. Lagos State government provided that kind of support to women-owned businesses. And I'm also proud to say that I'm on a platform where we have women that more or less they are good, but they lack confidence. So try to come and let them know that you must be able to walk into a room and hold your own. If you're on a board and there are 10 people on that board and just the only female there, make your mark. Hold your own and show that you can actually, you qualify to sit on that board. Not because they want to do a favor, but because you have the intellectual capacity and you have the boldness to actually offer much more than the men would do. So that's what I would say from our perspective in KPMG. And for me as a person, I'm also at the forefront of encouraging women in my local environment to go into anything that makes them happy. Whether I want to go into politics, we encourage you. Whether you want to go into education, we encourage you. Whether you want to go into fashion industry, we encourage you. We link you up with those that are successful in that space, link you up with them, and then you have that kind of connection to actually flourish.
Thanks so much. And I think in Canada we're very lucky because we have so many players in the ecosystem, private sector organizations, banks, and so on, but also government really trying to remove barriers, not just to women, but also to Black entrepreneurs. And so Canada, as you know, has the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy, but also the Black Entrepreneurship Strategy, which are really aimed at addressing some of the systemic barriers women and Black entrepreneurs face. So I'm sure those also make a big difference. And just picking up on that then, Christine, because you and I were at the launch of a couple of programs recently, along with Olu and others. Do you want to talk about women in trade and how that becomes a really important part of a strategy to support women entrepreneurs and Black entrepreneurs and any entrepreneurs?
Okay. So the question that I've been posed is why is international trade so important to entrepreneurs at large? But I'll get into the diversity part in a minute. I mean, it's pretty simple. It's not rocket science. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the population, global population, and where the middle classes are, is pretty simple. You're looking, if you want to think small and you're happy with a small return. In Canada, we've got just under 40 million people. Our middle class is 10%, so you're looking at about a maximum of 4 million middle class people, right? If you look at the United States and you want to go continental, and most of our business, as you know, 70+% is with the United States, right? So if you look there, population of 335 million, and right now their middle class is at 50%, and it's actually trending downward. If you look at the US stats, starting in 1971, they had 61% middle class, and it's been downtrending all the way to 2021 at 50%. So you're looking at probably 150 million middle class. So I'm going to now go over to Asia Pacific or the Indo-Pacific, or what the government is calling now, because that's the work that I do. We fundamentally, our think tank works on bringing Canada and Asia closer together, or the Indo-Pacific. So the stats, the Indo-Pacific, currently the population is 4.3 billion, and roughly 54% of that population is in the middle class, so over 2 billion, not million, billion, okay? And by 2030, they're projecting that the middle class, they're going to have about 3.6 billion. So in terms of markets, what does that tell you, right? So if you want to scale your businesses, you have to think about internationalization of your company. Now, you can't do it overnight. It takes a lot of work. You know, it's much easier, of course, to think about your local market, domestic market in Canada. You know how business is done, English or French, whatever your official language may be. And so when you're looking at across the Pacific Ocean, for example, you're looking at cultural differences, business practices that are unfamiliar to us, language difficulties, cultural difficulties. But if you put the time and energy and preparation into it, and you're market ready, the potential for scaling your business is unfathomable, right? And you know, I know that we have a lot of black women here today, black entrepreneurs as well. And Africa is not my specialty, but there's a specialist right there, Olu. So I gotta leave that to you. But in Africa, we've got a 1.4 billion population roughly right now, right? And I understand that in the last 30 years, the middle class there has tripled. So you're roughly working with 310 million middle class in Africa as well. So it's a very simple answer when it comes to that. And for women, the reason why the project that we're running in my office is that in 2017-18, we did a cross-country dialogue series with women in business, from C-suites down to entrepreneurs. We talked to 300 women from coast to coast, and what came out clearly was that they knew about the potential of scaling their businesses by going to internationalization of their companies, but it was just that unfamiliarity, the risk issue, greater risks when you're taking it outside of what you know, but they indicated to us clearly, every roundtable that we hosted, the women told us that if somebody would organize, facilitate trade missions dedicated only to women in business, to take them to dynamic markets around the world, that they would consider accessing those markets. So that's what we started. And I can tell you that we've run 6 international missions so far to Asia, and we're just finalizing the first round of the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy project. And the last one, because of the pandemic, you know, we couldn't run in-person missions for 5 of them. But the last one we just took in December, the first one since the pandemic. And of the 52 women we took, in 2 days, 3 women signed $5 million in deals. So that just gives you a little picture of what the potential is of the growth markets over there, or the large dynamic markets in Asia. So I'll stop there and I'll add later on. How's that?
So important. And, you know, one of the other opportunities, again, we talked earlier about thinking about newcomers as having assets rather than deficits. And so one of the programs we're promoting, for instance, is to connect newcomer entrepreneurs who have knowledge of international markets with Canadian-born entrepreneurs who need to understand those markets, because there's no better way to go to China, for instance, than with someone who has that in-depth experience. So I want to bring Manjeet into the conversation to talk more now about innovation and women in STEM and how the post-secondary institutions are really contributing to this discussion.
Thank you, Wendy. And if I can just sort of a little bit to add to our previous responses, we have so many international students here in all of our universities and colleges, highly skilled, They come with competencies. They come with connections. They come with a global understanding of how the industries work in their own countries and then how industries work here. So what a huge asset, what a huge resource to Canada, and to be able to help advance industries here as well. So, we're always looking at assets. I consider that's a big piece and a big role that our higher education institutions can play in connecting those things. So when we talk about innovation, innovation is really an idea in action. And I think one of our young presenters said that earlier on today. Innovation is an idea that's resourced and that's supported and that's helped. And all companies are talking about innovation. And when I look at it within the context of when I was at the city and in my current position, companies can help support this by ensuring there's collaboration. Collaboration across business areas, collaboration across disciplines, collaboration with inside an organization and with outside an organization. That collaboration also has to be supported with resources being put into that thinking. It has to be supported by ensuring that that risk is managed, because who wants to go into something thinking that if it doesn't go the way it's supposed to, then you're going to get penalized. So if you're going to support collaboration and innovation, then people need to be supported as they do that work inside an organization. It's building that culture of collaboration within that organization as well. So constantly talking about it, thinking about it, and knowing why you're doing it. You're doing it to create new ideas, new solutions. You're looking at challenges that might be being faced, and that might be a challenge or an opportunity in the delivery of a service. It might be the way in which we provide benefits in a community if we're an order of government. It might be the way that we're purchasing services and who we're purchasing them from. It might be the way that we're hiring or doing that work. So innovation can be in many different areas in terms of promoting and advancing it. So that question of what if we did it this way and not the way we do it right now? But what if your organization all looks the same? What if they all come from the same place with the same identities, the same experiences, the same culture and everything? Are you going to get to innovation even if you ask the question, what if? Probably not. You're going to get the same of the same of the same. And that's what seems to happen even with organizations that are saying they're being innovative. They're not actually innovative because they don't have the people with those diverse entities. And I think that's where the issue of diversity comes in. You've got to look elsewhere. You've got to make sure that at all levels of your organization, whether it be on your board of governors or whether it's in terms of those senior administrative positions, whether it's the sort of practitioners that are doing the work, that you're engaging and involving people from many identities. And that includes women, very much so women. And it includes women with different identities and different experiences. And I think Wendy showed us some stats earlier that even when we're looking at women in positions, in those higher positions, it doesn't reflect the multitude of identities. It doesn't always reflect people that look like me. It doesn't reflect people that look like you. So if you don't bring those people into those positions to be the decision makers, to be the policy makers, to be the innovators, to think about how should this city be planned? If you're planning the city from one dimension, it's going to look a particular way. If you involve a diverse group of individuals in there, and if you involve women, we're going to plan that city differently. We're going to look at it in terms of how we live, what we need, what our families need, and to be safe, to be secure, and to be able to do that. And I think that applies to everything. So innovation without diversity, innovation without including different perspectives and ideas is going to fail from my perspective. And when it fails, it means it's a bad business decision, whether you're in the public sector or whether you're in the private sector. When you involve that diversity, you're going to get solutions that are going to meet market needs, what people want. It's going to make a better society and a better community if you're in the public sector. If you innovate by engaging those international students that come here, there are global navigators. When you hire somebody who comes with that global navigation experience, it's going to build your market because they know. They are cultural interpreters, global navigators, and they can understand how industries and communities work. They understand how businesses work. They understand how governments work, right? So I think we're trying to sort of look at how we do that. For Centennial College, we have students who are from diverse backgrounds, who are our domestic students. We draw on the Scarborough neighborhood, which is very diverse for any of you who know that neighborhood. You know, great Scarborough, love Scarborough, right? So a bit of Scarborough love going on here. And we have international students students who come from all over the globe as well. So we have this group of individuals in our classrooms. And so the role that Centennial is taking is how do we support those students to develop their networks and to be those next innovators? We're asking them the question, what would you change? What would you change from the perspective that you bring? And how can we help you to be able to get into those governance positions, to those employment positions? How can we make sure that if you want to be an entrepreneur, that you have those skills? Because networks are a big part of this as well, right? If you don't have those networks, if you don't have that social capital, it's really hard. I started at the beginning by saying, you know, my parents came from India to the UK. They didn't speak English. They had no networks, right? It's really hard if you don't have those kind of things in place. And then, you know, later on, I'll talk about how organizations can also think about how they operate and work. Do we procure from women-owned businesses? Do we procure from Black women-owned businesses? How are we hiring? When we do interviews, what do those interviews look like? Are we really getting the best of the best in all of that? Because if we don't, we will fail as educators, we will fail as governments, and we will fail as industry partners if we don't make those links. I will stop right there, Wendy.
So great. Such a range of perspectives, and really recognizing the complexity of the problem means there aren't simple solutions. We are almost at time though, so what I wanted to do was just give everybody a minute to really identify the most important thing. And I know it's always hard, you know, whenever anyone asks me for one thing, I give them 1A, B, C, just to get around the question. But if there were one thing that we could do to really advance women in leadership roles, whether we're talking about the C-suite or we're talking about entrepreneurs, what would that be? And I'll start with you, Adeniki, because you're the farthest away. What's the one thing that will drive women into leadership roles?
Mentoring.
What is just take a minute for one thing to drive women into leadership roles?
I would say deliberate coaching and support to see women excel. I tell people that it's a misconception to think that having other women on the table are competitors. You need to have, the more men you have on the table, the more successful you become in your role as a leader. And then the happier you become that you're having generations that are coming after you that will start off from where you are now and do much more better as they grow in their own career. So you need to actually handhold people and be deliberate about supporting them so that they can become confident and reach their goal. Thank you.
Thank you. And Christine, what's the one thing that you think will make a difference?
I think in general, we need to have a pipeline. And how do you get that pipeline into the C-suites for women? We're doing much better on boards, I think, in the last decade or so, right, Wendy?
A little bit.
Yeah. A little bit better, but the number of C-suites, that level has not really budged. And you need women in CEO positions or decision-making roles within the companies in order to help the pipeline of women coming up. Unless they get into the C-suite category, you're not going to move further up, whether it's into the boards or not. So I think we need to figure out, work together, build that ecosystem, get the allies that we need in order to encourage, maybe get companies to implement policies to ensure that there's certain percentage of women candidates for every executive board competition or what have you. And I know of a C-suite woman that actually did that. When there was an executive position, if all the managers or directors or whatever came back with candidates, unless they had 50% women candidates, she wouldn't take it on. So we need that allyship and policies within corporations in order to ensure that there's a good pipeline made and to encourage more women to get into the leadership roles.
So important. And Manjeet, you talked about a lot of stuff, but in your view, what's the one most important thing?
So Ditto to you, Christine. I think, having those policies, I would say building those networks and mentorship, because if you don't have those, it's really hard. And I think at any level, so whether it's entry level, be a mentor to somebody. And at those senior levels, be a mentor to somebody who's moving up into those senior positions. I think that's really critical to help open those doors and take the hand of that woman and help her through that process.
Thanks so much. And Jennifer?
I will preface my answer with that I think all of these things actually benefit all forms of diversity. It's not just about women. It's all traditionally underrepresented groups. These all apply. I had a list. I had an ABC, but I will try to keep it to one. I really think it's time that we humanize the work experience a bit more. Frankly, we do have executive roles that could be filled by women. We've got great women who have been in executive roles or who want to be in executive roles. But then they get there and they go, this isn't actually great. This isn't actually all that fun. I'm not actually enjoying myself or my life in these executive roles. So the idea of creating a more human work experience, I think, is very, very appealing. Again, for a wide range of people, for everyone. I'm sure men want it too. And it's really about moving away from what I wrote down here as a harsh, cut and dry work or life model, which is quite frankly what I've been told many times in my career, certainly over the last 10 years. Really, that's been driven by the patriarchy for millennia. No one said the patriarchy yet today. I just had to put it in there. We got to put it in there. If I hear work hard, play hard one more time, my eyes will literally roll out of my head. I have no interest in working hard, playing hard. I have interest in working smart, working effectively, efficiently, and going home and having a life. So that's something that I'm really interested in exploring in the next stage of my career, certainly that I would encourage all of you to explore as future leaders, and for those of you who are leaders, what can that look like within your own leadership teams? Work really is one part of life. We should remember that. Always, work is one part of your life. And I think we need to treat our teammates like full-color humans. A little bit more. And the reality is, I think the result will be better and fuller participation in work, happier and healthier relationships, more loyalty in work, and stronger professional outputs and results. So that's humanity, humanizing work. That's my answer.
That's such a great answer and a very clever response to one point. And it's important to recognize that with skill shortages, this is becoming a decision factor for many young, bright people. They don't want to live the experience of their boomer workaholic clawing to the top parents. And so it is key. I'm going to end with my one point. I recognize that checking boxes is not the only thing, but we have to set targets and goals because what gets measured gets done. And I really do think the 50-30 challenge, getting organizations to commit to gender parity in my lifetime, please God, gender parity and increased representation on boards and leadership roles is absolutely pivotal. Thank you very much, and thanks to our panel.
Thank you to Dr. Wendy Sukir, and I hope I fixed your name. My apologies for that, Wendy, and her outstanding panel. And the technology that allowed us to bring someone in from very far away, that worked beautifully. If you're going to do a photo, maybe there's a photo opportunity. You're wanted on the red carpet right away. Stat. Everybody here looks like they're ready for the red carpet. It's wonderful. So we're about to wrap up the 4th edition of Women Inspire, hosted by Casa Foundation. We thank you for your patience. We've seen some terrific, I think, if you want to go through, are you going to do a photo or not? Maybe, I don't know, who knows? That's okay, yeah. So we've had terrific speakers, panelists, moderators, audience. This has been a stellar event. It's been a privilege for me to be a part of it, so thank you for including me. To the organizers, a great team. And I'm going to ask Dr. Olutoyin Oyelade to come back over here and give a final comment before you get to enjoy a fantastic lunch and do more networking. The room's open till 1, so I will let you take it away.
Okay. Thank you, Manjit. I'll see you outside. I'll join you outside. All right. We need to make good time, and thank you so much. I think I've had a fantastic time listening to, all these women from diverse industry sectors and, sharing from their hearts, their journey, their experiences, and their stories. And I think this has really been wonderful for me personally, and I do hope you share the same feelings. I was going to ask, and I'm not even sure if Charmaine is still here, when she went on and on her panel about TD, all right. And so I said, oh, my CIBC friends and my BMO. What do you? All right, so a shout out to you out there, all right. But then TD is a fantastic bank, actually. My daughter works there. All righty. Ladies and gentlemen, for the gentlemen, humorous, okay? But thank you again for joining us today. It's been fantastic having you in the room with us. And it's been an enlightening session, definitely. I wanted to say, yes, we've touched on so many points here today. Systemic changes from Sarah kicked it off, and that panel was huge. And then, of course, we've talked about wealth creation. So please take a cue from what was shared on that panel. Let's all have some funds set apart for the rainy day, because the rainy days, they do come, and they come upon us so suddenly sometimes. So we need to have that set aside. And so please connect with as many women in the room today. It's so important to keep connecting. And of course, we've talked also about some of the changes that we need to have in our workplace as CEOs, as founders of organizations, and so on. Now, this last panel did talk about a few other points about why you need social capital, why mentorship is important, what the practices in the workplace, and so on. And I just wanted to quickly share with us then, as we wrap up, that next year we're looking forward to Women Inspire 2024. And so for Women Inspire 2024, perhaps they took a glimpse of my PowerPoint, and so we're just going to introduce that to you, Women Inspire 2024, right here. TRBOT, Toronto, and the title of that is The Power of Allyship, if I'm correct, the power of allyship. So we look forward to welcoming you to that session again next year, the power of allyship, and that's what we're going to be talking about. But before next year, so what do we need to do? How do we move forward, even from here? We do have a lot of programs that you can actually take advantage of. I'm sure you heard some of the announcements from the federal government about funding already provided for Casa Foundation to set up, some sort of continuing education sessions, seminars, webinars, whatever you're familiar with. And now we're present in Ottawa. We're in Ottawa and we're in Quebec. And so for those ones watching online and for some of us in the room, feel free to join us on the GTA for some of those sessions, Finding Purpose, the Black Advisory Hub itself, and the power of allyship. Allyship matters, and I'm sure you all agree with me. People talked about social capital here. You can't have social capital enough, or you can't leverage it to the hilt if you don't have allies. So your strategic alliances, they speak for you. When you're not in the room, when you're in the room, the mentors, even if they can't help, they have one or two people around them that they can actually introduce you to. So allies matter. Allyship matters. Let's look forward to that, and we look forward to welcoming you all there. And you can check all our websites for details of the power of allyship. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today, and thank you again to all our speakers, all our sponsors, and our mentors in the room. We look forward to connecting with you during lunch. I know we're all ready for that. So let's do that. Thank you again, and have a wonderful time.